Chapter 43. P.S. I'm really sorry. I promised to start writing 2 chapters a day, but today is really unfortunate. The company got off work late, and the circuit in the neighborhood was repaired today. The phone only came back after 9 o'clock. I hurriedly continued the part one wrote yesterday and continued to write more than 1,000 words. That's the last chapter tonight. After Yi Tianzong finished speaking, Yi Haoren and Yi Tianzong's family members couldn't calm down. Although they didn't want to admit Yi Tianzong's words, they had to admit that Yi Tianzong's words were very reasonable. Yi Haoren was silent for a moment and said self-deprecatingly, "Alas! As the sect master of a super sect, I boasted that I was knowledgeable and had a good vision. I didn't expect that I would be so arrogant and conceited. Since ancient times, many Wusheng existences have been born, although the world changed greatly and they all disappeared. Since our Haoren sword sect has a secret realm that can accommodate our ancestors' sleep, who knows how many hidden secret realms there are? This is an obvious truth. But why did we ignore it? Yi Haoren wasn't the only one who felt this way. Even Yi Yuanshan, Li Qingya, Su Mingxin, and Ling Xinyue felt that they were ignorant and fearless in the past. They didn't think about the deep secrets of the world at all. Yi Tianzong continued, "It's not too late to know now. As long as we always maintain a clear understanding and have a heart of reverence for heaven and earth, we won't be lost. In this way, our Haoren sword sect can go further." Yi Haoren heard this and said solemnly, "Tianzong, you're still the clear-headed one. In the future, you have to check the sect's affairs and development direction more and try to prevent us from taking detours." Yi Yuanshan waved his hand and said, "You don't have to say that. When has Tianzong not checked the sect's major events? Also, since the Demon Sword sect has a close relationship with the Sky Demon Temple, and it's even possible that the Demon Sword sect is supported by the Sky Demon Temple, then do we still have to carry out our plan to take revenge on the Demon Sword sect?" Yi Tianzong said, "Of course we'll carry it out. Our enmity with the Demon Sword sect has been entangled for thousands of years, and we can't live under the same sky. Although the Demon Sword sect might be supported by the Sky Demon Temple, they definitely wouldn't dare to expose their relationship. Don't forget that the Sky Demon Temple and the Lingyun Hall had a long history and were very powerful. The Zhou dynasty had been guarding against them for a long time. Once the relationship between the Demon Sword sect and the Sky Demon Temple was exposed, the Zhou dynasty would definitely dig deeper. Thus, they might expose even more of the Sky Demon Temple's secret forces. Even if we attack the Demon Sword sect, it will only be resisted by the Demon Sword sect's own strength. In any case, the Demon Sword sect is a super sect on the surface and has its own foundation. No matter how great the losses are, it will not be destroyed. Since that's the case, why don't we fight?" Yi Yuanshan slapped his thigh and said, "That's right. Then let's fight. These bastards of the Demon Sword sect have bullied our Haoren sword sect for so many years. This daddy has long been itching to attack the Demon Sword Peak one day and ruthlessly slaughter them to take revenge for so many years." Yi Haoren also said, "That's right. Since that's the case, then we'll prepare according to the plan and attack the Demon Sword sect in 3 months. As for the other sects, we'll endure it for the time being. One day, we'll visit them one by one to ask for advice." In this way, under the planning of Yi Tianzong and his family, the Haoren sword sect was mobilized and steadily expanded their sphere of influence. After a full 3 months, the Haoren sword sect had built dozens of villas outside their jurisdiction, and their sphere of influence had expanded to 500 miles. There were also hundreds of cities of different sizes that were under construction. After 3 months, the Haoren sword sect had completed their new deployment plan. In the border cities bordering the Haoren sword sect and the Demon Sword sect, 200,000 Haoren disciples and more than 100 elder Wu Zongjing had gathered. In order to deal a heavy blow to the Demon Sword sect, even Yi Tianzong's uncle, Yi Tianzong, was transferred back from the Xian New Temple, together with Yi Yuanshan, Li Qingya, Yi Haoren, and Su Mingxin. A total of 5 people led the Haoren Sword Sect to attack the Demon Sword Sect. Yi Tianzong stayed at the Tiangang Peak to take charge. In order to take revenge on the Demon Sword Sect, the Haoren Sword Sect, who hated the Demon Sword Sect to the core, gathered about half of their forces to take revenge on the Demon Sword Sect. Of course, such a big move couldn't be hidden from the Demon Sword Sect, because they had lost a large part of their forces when they attacked the Haoren Sword Sect. In order to resist the revenge of the Haoren Sword Sect, the Demon Sword Sect even called back the forces that were attacking the Xian New Temple. They gathered all the forces that could be used and transferred the forces of the affiliated sections. Even the battles with Jinbu Gate and Medicine King Valley were stopped, leaving only tens of thousands of people to hide in the city and maintain a defensive state. In the end, the Demon Sword Sect gathered nearly 500,000 people and deployed them in the Demon Sword City under the Demon Sword Peak. It was obvious that they wanted to compete with the Haoren Sword Sect in the Demon Sword City. After the Haoren Sword Sect finished their preparations, Yi Haoren, as the sect leader, ordered 200,000 Haoren disciples to cross the border and enter the territory of the Demon Sword Sect, heading straight for the Demon Sword City. On the other hand, because the war between the Demon Sword Sect and the True Martial Sect had temporarily stopped in order to prevent the True Martial Sect from taking the opportunity to attack the Haoren Sword Sect again when the Haoren Sword Sect attacked the Demon Sword Sect, Yi Tianzong deployed 150,000 Haoren disciples in Lin State City, where the Haoren Sword Sect had previously fought with the True Martial Sect. The remaining 2 directions each had 50,000 disciples. Yi Haoren and the others led 200,000 disciples and more than 100 elders into the territory of the Demon Sword Sect. In order to weaken the strength of the Demon Sword Sect to the greatest extent, as long as they found a martial artist of the basic martial disciple realm and above, they would all be killed. Perhaps this was very cruel, but every time the Demon Sword Sect invaded the Haoren Sword Sect in the past, they would even mercilessly slaughter ordinary people. In comparison, the Haoren Sword Sect's current method was already very merciful. If it wasn't for the fact that they were currently in a period of war between the righteous and the devil, surrounded by enemies, the Haoren Sword Sect would even want to use the power of the entire sect to kill the Demon Sword Sect. After all, the hatred between the Haoren Sword Sect and the Demon Sword Sect for thousands of years was difficult to resolve. The large army of the Haoren Sword Sect did not encounter any obstacles along the way. After marching for 5 days, they finally arrived at the last barrier of the Demon Sword Sect, the Demon Sword City. Here, the most intense and cruel battle between the 2 super sects would take place. The final result would determine the situation of the 2 sects for the next few decades. All the super sects were also paying attention to this decisive battle. The large army of the Haoren Sword Sect rested outside the Demon Sword City for a night. The people of the Demon Sword Sect in the Demon Sword City were also cautious and did not carry out any sneak attacks at night. After several exchanges, the Demon Sword Sect was very clear that the strength of the Haoren Sword Sect was off the charts. Their formation was tight and they were highly vigilant. A sneak attack would basically be useless. Instead, it would just be a waste of strength. At this moment, the Demon Sword Sect's sect master, the Demon Sword Venerable, stood on the city wall of the Demon Sword Sect. Around him were the vice sect master and all the elders of the Demon Sword Sect. Looking at the Haoren Sword Sect's army, camping outside the city with an ugly expression, the Demon Sword Venerable said in a sinister tone, "Humph, how hateful! The Haoren Sword Sect's strength is beyond our expectations. They actually killed more than 200,000 of our Demon Sword Sect's disciples. In the past, when wasn't it us who attacked their Tiangang Peak? I didn't expect that we would be the ones being attacked. This is simply a disgrace to us." The vice sect master of the Demon Sword Sect said, "Humph, I didn't expect that just a moment of carelessness would cause an uncontrollable change in the Haoren Sword Sect." Their strength has changed so much in just a dozen years. There must be some secrets that we don't know. The demon Sword Venerable said, "What's the use of saying all these now? The most important thing now is to defend the demon Sword City. We must not let the Howren Sword sect take even half a step forward. With our current strength, we can't do anything to the Howren Sword sect. However, we can delay these 200,000 people of the Howren Sword sect here. As long as we delay for a long time, the other super sects who don't want to see the rise of the Howren Sword sect will definitely take the opportunity to strike again. Moreover, as a precaution, I have already invited a few seniors to take charge. As long as the battle situation is unfavorable, they will definitely step in to stabilize the situation." After the demon Sword Venerable finished speaking, the surrounding elders and the vice sect master nodded in understanding. Chapter 44. Of course, the Howren Sword sect had also considered the situation that the demon Sword sect hoped for. At night, in the center of the Howren Sword sect's camp, Yi Howren and the other four, as well as the Hall Masters and the Peak Elders of Wuzong, gathered together. Yi Howren said, "This time we must take revenge on the demon Sword sect as quickly as possible. We must finish the battle within 7 days. Once the battle continues for too long, those sects that we just defeated will take the opportunity to make a comeback and encircle us again. At that time, it will be a huge threat to our development." Hall Master Wang Li said, "Sect Master, please rest assured. Our enmity with the Demon Sword sect has long been irreconcilable. Most of the people in the sect have deep enmity with the Demon Sword sect. We have been waiting for this day for too long. We will definitely do our best to attack the Demon Sword sect. Even if we have to pay any price, we must completely cripple them and end the battle as quickly as possible." Hearing this, the other Hall Masters and Elders also solemnly promised that they would fight to the end at all costs. The enmity between the Demon Sword sect and the Howren Sword sect that had lasted for thousands of years was too deep. In the past, the Howren Sword sect was alone, and their only ally, the Xiannu Temple, was not very helpful. Almost every time they fought with the Demon Sword sect, they would be besieged and attacked by the other sects led by the Demon Sword sect, causing heavy losses. There were even more times when the Demon Sword sect attacked the Heavenly Dipper Peak, creating a monstrous massacre in the Howren Sword sect's territory. Most of the people under the jurisdiction of the Howren Sword sect, including the disciples and elders, had their elders, relatives, friends, and teachers killed by the people of the Demon Sword sect. Now, because of Yi Tianzong, the strength of the Howren Sword sect had greatly increased. They could finally take revenge on the Demon Sword sect. The disciples and elders of the Howren Sword sect couldn't suppress the excitement and killing intent in their hearts. Even without Yi Howren's signal, they were all prepared to fight to the death and never return. Naturally, Yi Howren knew what the disciples and elders were thinking. Even his father, Yi Howren, was radiating a boundless killing intent and a fluctuating aura. After considering it for a moment, Yi Howren decided not to say anything. Instead, he said with a grim expression, "For this battle, my father and I will not be taking action for now. Hao Yun will be the leader to deal with Demon Sword Premier and the others. There will definitely be elders of the Demon Sword sect in the opposite Demon Sword City. Once the battle situation is unfavorable, they will definitely take action. At that time, we will take action to stop them. The rest will be up to you." The examination hall master, Lin Chin, said, "Sect Master, don't worry. We will definitely not act rashly. We will definitely make the Demon Sword sect pay with their blood. We will definitely not disappoint the people of our Howren kingdom." Yi Howren nodded and said, "Good. You all go and tell them what to do. Then rest. Tomorrow is the time for our revenge." "Yes, Sect Master." After the various hall masters and elders received the order, they all left. Only Yi Howren and his family were left in the tent. Yi Yuanshan clenched his fists tightly. With a choked voice, he said with an excited expression, "I finally waited for this day. My father, brothers, friends, and fellow apprentices can finally be avenged. I originally thought that I would never see this day in my life. I really didn't expect. I will definitely make the demon sword sect pay the price. Li Qingya sat beside Yuan Shan and said with heartache, Old man, don't be too sad. No matter what, we have become strong. Father and the others will definitely be avenged. As Yi Yuanshan's wife, Li Qingya knew very well how much regret and pain Yi Yuanshan had been carrying all these years. His father, brothers, friends, and fellow apprentices had almost all died in the battle with the demon sword sect. Yi Haoren, Su Mingxin, and Yi Haoyan didn't say anything when they saw the state of Yi Yuanshan and Li Qingya. Instead, they quietly left the tent. Walking outside, Yi Haoren said with a gloomy expression, Haoyun, you must teach the demon sword sect a lesson tomorrow. Bring out all your strength and don't have any scruples. Kill as many as you can. We have the obligation to avenge father's regret and pain. Yi Haoyun said solemnly and firmly, Big brother, don't worry. I will definitely make the demon sword sect pay the price for their sins. I will definitely not let them go. The next day after breakfast, more than 200,000 people of the Haoren sword sect gathered together and looked at the demon sword city opposite them with murderous intent. The people of the demon sword city, who were already on high alert, also looked at the people of the Haoren sword sect below with vigilance. In order to increase the difficulty and delay the Haoren sword sect's battle, the people of the demon sword sect didn't plan to go out of the city and confront the Haoren sword sect head-on. Instead, they stayed in the city and defended. Nearly 500,000 people were holed up in the city. The demon sword city was the last barrier to the demon sword sect's headquarters, the demon sword peak. It was also the only way. If the Haoren sword sect wanted to attack the demon sword peak, they had to conquer the demon sword city. Similarly, if the Haoren sword sect was attacked, they would have to conquer the Haoren city in order to injure the Tiangang peak. There was no other way. Seeing that the people of the demon sword sect were defending the demon sword city to the death, the examination hall master, Lin Chen, said, It seems that the demon sword sect is determined to be a coward and not come out. Yi Haoyun, who was presiding over the attack of the Haoren sword sect, had a cold expression. He revealed a mocking smile and said, Do they think that by not coming out they can delay the revenge of our Haoren sword sect? Simply wishful thinking. The achievement hall master, Wang Li, said confidently, With the siege weapon prepared by the young sect master, the demon sword sect's demon sword city won't be able to stop us. As soon as he said this, the other elders who knew the inside story revealed confident expressions. That's right. The siege weapon prepared by Yi Tianzong was gunpowder. As early as when Yi Tianzong was in charge of the Haoren sword sect and planning to take revenge on the demon sword sect, he had already begun researching gunpowder. Gunpowder, once accumulated in quantity, would undoubtedly be a siege weapon. However, the rules of every world were different. Yi Tianzong wasn't sure if something similar to gunpowder existed or if it would be effective. In the world that Yi Tianzong had experienced before, there was a phenomenon where gunpowder was ineffective. With the mentality of giving it a try, after more than a year, Yi Tianzong really concocted a substance similar to gunpowder. As for its power, it was similar to ordinary gunpowder. However, since he finally found such a thing, Yi Tianzong still called it gunpowder. Since then, Yi Tianzong began to secretly stockpile gunpowder. Until now, Yi Tianzong had stockpiled hundreds of tons of gunpowder. After the gunpowder was produced, Yi Tianzong also showed the power of gunpowder to his family and several palace masters. He once put 100 jin of gunpowder together and blew up a small mountain, shocking the onlookers at that time. After knowing that Yi Tianzong had stockpiled a lot of gunpowder on the Tiangang peak, those who knew about it were all on tenterhooks. They all asked Yi Tianzong to store the gunpowder in a secret place at the foot of the mountain and absolutely not on the Tiangang peak. In this attack on the demon sword sect, Yi Tianzong and the others had long expected that the Demon Sword sect might defend the city to the death. It was just a good opportunity to use the Demon Sword sect to test the power of gunpowder. Looking at the Demon Sword city, not far away, Harran Palace Master gave an order. 200,000 disciples of Harran's sword sect took large strides towards the Demon Sword city with surging killing intent. Full of hatred and killing intent gathered together and filled the sky above the Harran sword sect camp, causing the sky to be particularly gloomy. Dark clouds covered the sky, and the air in the space seemed to have become sticky, making it difficult to breathe. Chapter 45. When they were about to reach the walls of Demon Sword City, Demon Sword Venerable was about to give the order to attack the people of Harran's sword sect. However, the disciples of Harran's sword sect suddenly pulled out an iron plate from their backs and raised it above their heads. 100,000 iron plates covered the figures of Harran's sword sect disciples below, causing the people of Demon Sword sect who wanted to attack to feel sullen and depressed. However, although they knew that the effect of the attack was minimal, the people of Demon Sword sect still shot out the arrows and spears in their hands. For a moment, countless arrows and spears were shot down from the high city wall, hitting on the iron plates held up by Harran's disciples. A series of clanging noises could be heard without an end. Occasionally, there would be Harran's sword sect disciples who were unlucky and were shot by arrows or spears. However, the Harran sword clan was not to be outdone either. The disciples of the Harran sword clan at the rear operated their crossbows, and countless arrows were shot towards the Demon Sword city, one wave after another, causing the people of the Demon Sword clan who were guarding the city to suffer heavy casualties. At this time, the vice sect master of Demon Sword sect said, "Pour kerosene on me and attack with fire. Let's see how they can block it." Hearing this, all the people of Demon Sword sect on the city walls stopped shooting arrows and spears because the disciples of Harran sword sect were still a few meters away from the city walls. Therefore, the people of Demon Sword sect braved the rain of arrows and threw bags of kerosene down the city walls, landing on the iron plates raised by the disciples of Harran sword sect. Then, one by one, the burning arrows shot towards the camp of Harran sword sect disciples below. The kerosene had a pungent smell. When the kerosene fell on the iron plates, the disciples of Harran's sword sect knew that Demon Sword sect was going to use fire to attack. Therefore, the disciples of Harran's sword sect, who had kerosene on the iron plates, directly squatted down, took the iron plates, and retreated to the rear to wipe off the kerosene before returning. The other disciples of Harran sword sect filled in the empty space. When the fire arrows on the city wall shot down, there was no kerosene left, and it did not cause much damage. The people of Demon Sword sect on the city walls were angry and cursed. Continue to throw kerosene, or use fire to attack. I don't believe they can hold on for long if this continues. The vice sect master of the Demon Sword sect shouted in exasperation. At a time like this, there was no need for calm demeanor. This was a battle of life and death. Demeanor and whatnot could all go to the side. Survival was the way of the king. It had to be said that the Demon Sword sect's vice sect master's idea was correct. As long as the Demon Sword sect continued to attack with fire, once the Harran sword sect's disciples were unable to react in time, there would be a hole in their defense, resulting in a large number of casualties. Just as Harran's disciples were using the metal plates to block the attacks from above, more than 100 elders had arrived at the front lines several meters away from the walls of Demon Sword City. As for Yi Haoyun, he was carrying a large bag of items on his back. Using Aurora Flash, he quickly arrived at the city gates of Demon Sword City. Every elder was carefully carrying 100 kilograms of gunpowder in their hands. They couldn't be careless. If they weren't careful, this guy would be blown up into the sky. When every elder stood at the front lines, the surrounding Harran's disciples held the metal plates and gathered around the elders, blocking the attacks from the city walls for each elder. The movements of the Harran sword sect's elders naturally couldn't escape the eyes of the Demon Sword sect. Although they didn't understand why the Howren sword sect's elders had come to the front lines, the attacks from the city walls had become even more intense and fierce. Under such circumstances, every Howren sword sect's elders placed the gunpowder bags in their hands on the ground. Then they began to circulate the Zhanyuan in their body to accumulate power. It seemed that they were about to use a big move. That's right, this was the plan that Yi Haoyun and the others had discussed. Every elder carried 100 kilograms of gunpowder bags. Yi Haoyun even carried 200 kilograms. This weight was a piece of cake for a martial artist like Wu Zongjing. If they carried the gunpowder bags to the city walls and directly detonated them, the effect wouldn't be great. Therefore, every elder used their most powerful move to destroy the bottom of the city walls and open a hole at the bottom of the Demon Sword City's city walls. As long as the hole was deep enough and big enough to throw the gunpowder bags in, it would be fine. As for Yi Haoyun, he wanted to open a big hole on both sides of the Demon Sword City city gates and stuff his gunpowder bags in. As for using his powerful strength to forcefully break open the Demon Sword City city gates, it could only be said that it was unrealistic. For a city like the Demon Sword City that was the last line of defense for a super sect, the city gates were all made of special materials. This special material was called black rock crystal. Black rock crystal was currently the hardest material found in the profound spirit world. Moreover, it also had the characteristic of absorbing energy. For a city like the Demon Sword City, the city gates made of black rock crystal were at least 3 meters thick. As long as there was someone guarding behind the gate, not to mention Yi Haoyun's strength, even if Yi Tianzong came, it would still be useless. Yi Haoyun had no choice but to blow up the city gates made of black rock crystal. Yi Haoyun used his world-suppressing fist technique and condensed a ferocious strength to open up a 2-meter deep hole in each side of the city wall. Then he placed 200 kilograms of gunpowder into the 2 deep holes. After dealing with it, Yi Haoyun waited for the signal below the city gates. In his position, the people on the city walls couldn't attack him. The other elders also attacked the city walls with all their strength, trying to break open a deep enough hole in the shortest time possible to place the gunpowder bags. This kind of behavior made the people of the Demon Sword sect very puzzled. The Demon Sword City's city walls were more than 3 meters thick, which was more than 10 meters. If Wu Zongjing's martial artists were to seriously attack, they could break open a hole. However, even if they open a hole, it would only allow 1 or 2 people to pass through. It was completely unrewarding. It would be better to siege the city walls. Looking at the Howren sword sect's elders attacking the city walls with all their strength, the people of the Demon Sword sect were puzzled. The Demon Sword sect's sect master, Demon Sword Venerable, felt uneasy, but he couldn't tell where this uneasy feeling came from. As the holes opened by the Howren sword sect's elders became bigger and bigger, the uneasy feeling in the Demon Sword Venerable's heart became stronger and stronger. In the end, he stared at the movements of the Howren sword sect's elders. After only a moment, the Howren sword sect's elders had stopped attacking the city walls. Each of them was carrying a package. Then, behind the Howren sword sect's elders, a flame soared into the sky and exploded. At this moment, the Demon Sword Venerable's uneasiness reached its peak, and his pupils contracted extremely. Not good. Quickly stop them. Quick, pour oil under the city walls. Pour oil on those holes. Quickly pour it. Don't let them throw the things in their hands into the holes. Demon Sword Venerable didn't hesitate to circulate his Zhanyuan and roared loudly. At the same time, the Vice Sect Master and all the elders of the Demon Sword sect also loudly urged to pour oil quickly. They all felt extremely uneasy. However, it was already too late. The moment the signal rose, Yi Haoyun and all the elders lit the fuse of the gunpowder bags in their hands, and then threw the gunpowder bags into the holes that they had opened with all their strength. Then, all of them loudly ordered all the disciples of the Howren sword sect to retreat at full speed. They couldn't stay for a moment and ran as far as they could. Under the leadership of the elders, all the disciples of the Howren sword sect quickly retreated. On the city walls, Demon Sword Venerable's face was filled with panic as he roared loudly again. Everyone, quickly retreat from the city walls. Quickly. After speaking, he didn't care about the others. He didn't walk down the stairs and use the fastest speed in his life to jump down the city walls in a blink of an eye. The other Vice sect masters and elders also jumped down the city walls and quickly retreated, just when the other people of the Demon Sword sect still didn't understand what was going on. The gunpowder bags that were thrown into the holes under the city walls exploded. A total of more than 10,000 kilograms of gunpowder exploded. Rumble! An indescribable loud sound spread over a radius of dozens of miles. Chapter 46. Hundreds of blazing waves of fire rushed out from the bottom of the Demon Sword City wall. Accompanied by a doomsday-like tremor, the originally towering city wall was blown apart by a large amount of gunpowder. Pieces of the city wall collapsed one after another. The members of the Demon Sword sect, who were originally on the city wall, didn't have time to retreat in time. One by one, they were dizzy from the earth-shattering explosion, unable to stand firm. Accompanied by the collapse of the city wall, they were mercilessly buried or injured. Cries for help were drowned out by the earth-shattering explosion. Endless billowing smoke was like a sandstorm that covered the sky and covered the earth. Wrapped in blazing waves, it swept in the direction of the Howren sword sect's retreat. Although the members of the Howren sword sect, who were rapidly retreating, had run quite a distance, they were similarly shaken by the earth-shattering sound waves. They didn't know which direction was north, south, east, or west. However, under the desire to survive, they still got up and ran quickly. The blazing waves behind them were almost burning their bodies. Under the threat of the thick smoke and heat waves behind them, the disciples of the Howren sword sect, especially those who were at the back, used all their strength to run forward. In the end, they ran for more than 10 li before stopping. Every one of them sat on the ground as if they had just escaped death and gasped for breath. Yi Haoyun and the elders who ran at the back to look after the disciples of the Howren sword sect also sat down to adjust their breathing with lingering fear. Yi Haoyun said with some regret, "I really miscalculated. I should have made the fuse a little longer. I didn't expect that the explosion of more than 10,000 kilograms of gunpowder would be so powerful. Luckily, I didn't go deaf. Fortunately, we all ran out. Otherwise, because of my carelessness, the disciples would be injured. That would be too embarrassing to face the entire sect." The hall master of the achievement hall, Wang Li, also said with lingering fear, "Hall Master Yi, don't blame yourself. This isn't your problem alone. Everyone knows about the gunpowder, but we didn't expect that after the amount of gunpowder increased, the power of the explosion would be beyond our imagination. If it weren't for us at the back, some of the disciples might have been burned. Since we're already like this, I'm sure the people from the Demon Sword sect will be even more miserable. This time, it will definitely be enough for them to feel heartache, haha." Exam Hall Master Lin Chin said, "Haha, that's right. Time is short. The power of the gunpowder is so powerful that it must have blown up their city wall. Who knows how many people of the Demon Sword sect have died? As long as the city wall is not obstructed, the people of the Demon Sword sect will have no one to rely on. Our Howren sword sect will definitely attack the Demon Sword Peak in the shortest time." After Yi Haoyun regained his composure, he ordered, "Since that's the case, pass down my order. All the disciples of the sect are to gather and form a neat formation. After resting for an hour, we will set out to attack Demon Sword City." After receiving the order, all the hall masters and elders began to assemble Howren's disciples, waiting for the moment to attack again. Time passed quickly, and an hour passed in the blink of an eye. The Howren sword sect was ready to go. Yi Haoyun stood at the front of the team and said loudly, "Let's go! Today is the day we take our revenge. We must make the Demon Sword sect pay with their blood." 200,000 fully armed disciples of the Howren sword sect answered with a loud roar. Then, with a murderous aura, they once again advanced toward Demon Sword City. On the other side, after suffering the devastation of more than 10,000 kilograms of gunpowder, a large area of the city wall of Demon Sword City had collapsed. Countless pieces of flying stones and debris were scattered everywhere. It was no longer enough for the people of the Demon Sword sect to rely on. The houses in the city that were affected by the explosion also collapsed and even caused fires. Everywhere there were cries for help. The Demon Sword City was in chaos. Most of the tens of thousands of people of the Demon Sword sect who were originally crowded on the city wall were buried or injured by the explosion of the collapsed city wall. Only a few lucky people were spared. However, looking at their frightened appearance, they were no longer a concern. The Demon Sword sect's sect master, Demon Sword Venerable, as well as the vice sect masters and the various elders who had fled in advance, were also looking at the crumbling city walls in shock. Thick black smoke covered the sky, and their ears were still buzzing. What the hell is that? What the hell is that? How is that possible? What kind of thing could have such power? A late-stage Wuzong demon sword sect elder roared with a somewhat deranged expression. The few elders who were closer to him knew that on the collapsed city wall, the disciples and several outstanding descendants of this deranged elder didn't manage to escape. The chances of survival were very slim. This time, the Howren Sword sect came aggressively and seemed to be ready to fight to the death. It was estimated that after this battle, his lineage would be finished. It wasn't just this elder. Because they didn't expect such an outcome, a considerable number of disciples and descendants of the various elders were participating in the battle on the city wall. Many disciples and descendants of the other demon sword sect elders were buried in this explosion. Demon Sword Venerable was in a terrible mood facing this terrible situation. With an ugly expression, he said, "Now is not the time to dwell on this. The city wall has collapsed. The Howren Sword sect will attack again very soon. We have no way to defend ourselves. We can only fight with the Howren Sword sect in the city. Pass down my order. Everyone is to lie in ambush in the city. As long as the Howren Sword sect enters the city, no matter what method we use, we must delay them. We must not let the Howren Sword sect break into the Demon Sword City. The Howren Sword sect has a deep grudge with us. They will definitely not show any mercy. We have no way out. We can only fight to the death." Although this was what he said, Demon Sword Venerable had a faint premonition in his heart. This time, the Howren Sword sect came for revenge with full confidence. They would definitely go all out to end the battle quickly. The Demon Sword City might not be able to defend itself. It wasn't realistic to ask for help from the other sects. It was also too late. If the other sects took the opportunity to attack the Howren Sword sect, the Demon Sword sect wouldn't be able to hold on until then. Why did the Howren Sword sect's strength increase so much in just a short 10 years? Clearly, the Howren Sword sect had been besieged several decades ago. The Howren Sword sect's vitality had been greatly damaged. Just what kind of secret could cause the Howren Sword sect to undergo such a huge change in such a short time? Could it be that the Demon Sword sect will suffer the humiliation of being attacked by the Howren Sword sect in my hands? Demon Sword Venerable thought resentfully in his heart. Just as the Demon Sword sect elders received the order and went to make arrangements, for people wearing black brocade robes silently appeared behind Demon Sword Venerable. What was that shocking explosion just now? Why did the city wall collapse? Why is the city so chaotic? The leader asked with an unhappy expression. So it's Senior. Senior, I don't know what the Howren Sword clan used, but our city walls have been destroyed. The situation is not good now, and I have already instructed everyone to prepare for a decisive battle with the Howren Sword clan in the city. At the very least, we still have the geographical advantage, and we have more people than them. The Demon Sword Venerable was shocked, but he soon relaxed and answered respectfully. I didn't think that the Howren Sword sect would have such means. Truly hateful. Forget it. You are the sect master. You can make the arrangements for the battle situation. We are only responsible for ensuring that the Demon Sword Peak is not affected. Unless it is absolutely necessary, we will not intervene. The person who was addressed as senior by the Demon Sword Revered waved his hand and said in a somewhat impolite manner. Although his attitude wasn't very good, he clearly had no intention of interfering. Hearing that, Demon Sword Venerable breathed a sigh of relief. As long as the other party didn't interfere, everything would be fine. Although the situation was not good and he was eager to abdicate and let someone else take control of the situation, if the other party didn't understand the situation and seized power, he might as well do it himself. Thus he said respectfully, "Yes, Senior. Rest assured, I will lead the entire sect to fight the Howren Sword sect to the end." Chapter 47. P.S. Dear readers, thank you for your support. If you have extra recommendation tickets, please support me. Thank you. Just as the Demon Sword Sect's people were nervously setting up an ambush in the city, the Howren Sword Sect's people had already arrived outside the Demon Sword City. Looking at the large pieces of collapsed city walls, the morale of the Howren Sword Sect's people suddenly soared, and their momentum soared to the sky. Everyone divided into many teams and entered the Demon Sword City through the various gaps in the collapsed city walls. The moment they entered the city, they were the most vulnerable to attack, so more than 100 elders took the lead to enter the Demon Sword City. As expected, they were attacked by the Demon Sword Sect's people who were lying in ambush in the city. Arrows and crossbows blotted out the sky and covered the earth, but they were all blocked by the Howren Sword Sect's elders who were already prepared. The elders propped up their true essence shields to resist the attacks, and the Howren Sword Sect's disciples behind them raised iron plates to block the attacks, quickly entering the Demon Sword City. Facing the attack of the arrows, they approached the Demon Sword Sect's people. More and more Howren Sword Sect's disciples entered the Demon Sword City, and the disciples who entered first had already started fighting with the Demon Sword Sect's people. The Howren Sword Sect's disciples braved the arrow rain and pushed forward step by step, going deeper and deeper into the city. More and more disciples engaged in fierce battles with the Demon Sword Sect's people. This was a battle of life and death. There was no room for maneuver, and only one of the two sides could survive. The Howren Sword Sect's people were filled with hatred and killing, intent for revenge, while the Demon Sword Sect's people were fighting to protect their own sect's foundation. Both sides had a reason and determination to fight to the end, so this battle was destined to be very difficult and tragic. In order to resist the attacks of the Howren Sword Sect's people, the Demon Sword Sect's people relied on the geographical advantage and the number of people to use all kinds of methods. Hidden weapons, sneak attacks, poisons, traps, and so on, doing their best to kill the Howren Sword Sect's disciples and delay the pace of the Howren Sword Sect's attack. This caused a lot of trouble and casualties to the attacking disciples of Howren. The disciples of the Howren sect were also unwilling to be outdone. They tried their best not to fight alone. Basically, they formed sword formations in 2s and 3s to fight their enemies. They also retaliated by using hidden weapons, sneak attacks, and other methods to kill the people of the Demon Sword sect. Both sides fought each other in the numerous houses and intersecting streets of the city. There were even disciples of the Howren sect who carried gunpowder bags and were active on the battlefield. They threw gunpowder bags at the places where the people of the Demon Sword sect were gathered. With a single gunpowder bag, the people of the Demon Sword sect would either be killed or injured. They would also be shaken to the point of dizziness, tinnitus, and their reaction speed would decrease. The nearby disciples of the Howren sect would seize the opportunity to kill these people of the Demon Sword sect. In addition to these, the elders of the Howren Sword sect had also engaged in a confrontation with the powerhouses of the Demon Sword sect, Wuzongjing. The battle between the two sides had entered a white-hot state from the beginning. It was completely a desperate situation. Surging Zhen Yuan attacks overflowed. destroying all the houses and buildings within the range of the battle. The situation of the battle was naturally in the advantage of the elders of the Howren Sword sect. Originally, in the battle 3 months ago, the Howren Sword sect had killed more than 100 Wu Zongjing from the Demon Sword sect. Although there were only 50 or so that belonged to the Demon Sword sect, they still accounted for more than a third of the total number of Wu Zongjing in the Demon Sword sect. In order to resist the revenge of the Howren Sword sect, although the Demon Sword sect had once again transferred the powerhouses of the affiliated sects, the number of Wu Zongjing in the Demon Sword City was only 150. With such strength, they were naturally at a disadvantage against more than 100 Howren Sword sect elders. Half of the Howren elders were crushing their opponents one-on-one. Therefore, not long after the battle began, Wu Zongjing from the Demon Sword sect had fallen one after another. When the remaining Wu Zongjing from the Demon Sword sect saw that the situation was not good, they no longer fought recklessly. Instead, they used the advantage of being familiar with the terrain to constantly avoid the attacks of the Howren Sword sect elders. They led the Howren elders in circles, stalling for time. The Howren Sword sect elders, who saw through their intentions, did not give up. They kept chasing after the Wu Zongjing powerhouses of the Demon Sword sect. At the same time, they also attacked the people of the Demon Sword sect, who were below Wu Zongjing. How could the people of the Demon Sword sect, who were below Wu Zongjing, resist the attacks of the Howren Sword sect elders? Just an ordinary palm, fist, or sword strike was enough to injure and kill a large number of people of the Demon Sword sect. Noticing this situation, Wu Zongjing from the Demon Sword sect was anxious and angry. However, he could not win in a fight. He could only continue to helplessly run around the area occupied by the Demon Sword sect elders under the pressure of the Howren elders, step by step. The elders of the Howren Sword sect were naturally happy to maintain this state. They could chase the enemy away and also kill the people of the Demon Sword sect while they were at it. This would reduce the pressure on the Howren elders. Why not? Time passed in the midst of the fierce battle between the Demon Sword sect and the Howren Sword sect. On this day, the Demon Sword City became a bloody battlefield. There were people injured and dead everywhere. The air was filled with the pungent smell of blood. Every time the disciples of the Howren Sword sect took a step forward, the ground would be stained with the blood of the Demon Sword sect and their own side. After a day of fighting, both sides temporarily stopped fighting and retreated to their occupied areas to rest. For the sake of safety, the Howren Sword sect directly used force to flatten all the buildings in the area where they set up camp. They set up tents on the open ground and arranged for people to be on night duty. In the center of the huge tent, Yi Haoyun, Yi Howren, and the other family members, as well as the various hall masters and elders, were all present. Yi Howren and the others did not speak. Yi Haoyun said with a heavy face, "Today's battle is very fierce. We have already occupied about 20% of the area of the Demon Sword City." The Demon Sword sect did not shrink back. Relying on the geographical advantage and the advantage of numbers, they did not hesitate to use any means. "We have already lost more than 10,000 disciples. Although we don't know how many casualties the Demon Sword sect has, as the battle continues, victory will definitely belong to us. This time, our goal for revenge is to attack the Demon Sword Peak. Even if we have to sacrifice 100,000 disciples, we will not hesitate." After a pause, Yi Haoyun continued, "Although we, the Howren Sword sect, are not afraid of sacrifice, we must avoid it as much as possible. Tomorrow, the battle will start again. We must first eliminate the enemy's Wuzong as quickly as possible. This way, the elders who are free can lead the disciples to attack and reduce the casualties of the disciples. Tomorrow, all the elders must do their best to complete this matter. When the time comes, I will also join the battle. If there are any changes, you must remember not to care. Just focus on dealing with your opponents. Our time is very tight. We must achieve the greatest results in the shortest time possible." The Merit Hall Master Wang Li said, "Hall Master Yi, please rest assured. Tomorrow we will do our best to eliminate the enemy. They will have nowhere to run." The other elders and hall masters also promised that they would do their best to kill the enemy tomorrow. Yi Haoyun said, "Good. After a day of fighting, everyone must be tired. Go back and rest. We will continue the battle tomorrow." All the hall masters and elders left the tent, leaving only Yi Haoren and the others. Yi Haoren said, "Haoyun, once you take action tomorrow, the Marquis Wu invited by the Demon Sword sect will definitely notice you. At present, we don't know their number, so we will act with you tomorrow. We will be around you. Once you can't handle it, we will take action." Yi Haoyun nodded and said, "Okay, big brother. I know. I will be careful tomorrow. You must also be careful. Tomorrow's opponent is a real Marquis Wu. Although our strength is not bad, after all, we have never fought. Tianzong is not here, so we must pay more attention to everything." Yi Yuanshan said, "Well, we're not young people. Naturally, we will not underestimate the enemy and make some fatal mistakes. Don't worry." After exhorting each other to be careful, everyone dispersed and quietly waited for the next battle tomorrow. Chapter 48. On the other side of the Demon Sword sect, the upper echelons of the Demon Sword sect fell silent when they saw the number of casualties. In today's battle, the Demon Sword sect had the geographical advantage. They had more than twice the number of people compared to the Haoren Sword sect. Even after using all their means, they still suffered more than 30,000 casualties. This was a battle in their own territory, not an open and above-board clash outside the city. Even so, they still suffered more than 30,000 casualties. Just how strong was the Haoren Sword sect? Today was the first day of the Haoren Sword sect's attack. They were still unfamiliar with all aspects. Once they adjusted their condition, wouldn't the Demon Sword sect's casualties be even greater? Demon Sword Venerable said in a heavy tone, "Although I don't know the casualties of the Haoren Sword sect, based on their strength and unscrupulous attacking method, their casualties are definitely less than ours. This battle is destined to be a life and death battle from the beginning. Everyone, follow today's battle strategy and continue to stall for time tomorrow. We must delay the Haoren Sword sect in the Demon Sword City. As long as we can stall for enough time, we will definitely be able to defeat the Haoren Sword sect in the end. If there's nothing else, everyone can go back and rest." The elders of the Demon Sword sect, including the vice sect master, didn't have any good suggestions. They all said their farewells with heavy expressions and left. In this restless night, time passed and the next day arrived. The Haoren Sword sect and the Demon Sword sect's people were silently eating and preparing. Then another bloody battle broke out. More than 600,000 people from the Demon Sword sect and the Haoren Sword sect were engaged in a bloody battle in the Demon Sword City. Today's battle was even more tragic than yesterday. After yesterday's battle, the Haoren Sword sect's disciples had already begun to adapt to the battle in the city. Whether it was attacking or defending, their responses were more logical and methodical. The strength they displayed was also more lethal than yesterday. The result of this was that the Haoren Sword sect's attacks were even fiercer. The pressure on the Demon Sword sect's people increased, resulting in more casualties. However, the people of the Demon Sword sect were also unafraid of death. They fought back tenaciously from all directions. Every time the disciples of the Haoren Sword sect pushed into a house or occupied a street, there would be a bloody battle. As for the battle between Wu Zongjing and the martial artists, the elders of the Haoren Sword sect had the idea of killing their enemies in one blow. At the beginning of the battle, Wu Zong from the Demon Sword sect wanted to repeat the same trick. After fighting for a while, he continued to lead the Haoren elders in circles. However, he was caught off guard by the Haoren Sword sect elders, who had long prepared their killing moves. In yesterday's battle, they only killed less than 20 martial gurus of the Demon Sword clan. By the time the enemy realized that the situation was not good, They changed their strategy and began to run in circles. The elders of the Haren Sword clan did not pay attention at first, and when they wanted to kill the enemy later on, even if they were powerful, it was not easy for them to catch up with the martial gurus of the enemy who were bent on escaping, and the people of the Demon Sword clan were blocking them from time to time. Although they killed many disciples of the Demon Sword sect, they could not help but feel depressed. Having learned their lesson, the Haren Sword sect elders used their killing moves today. They would never be led around by the enemy again. In particular, the people of the Demon Sword clan who were fighting one-on-one with the elders of the Haren Sword clan were not as strong as the elders of the Haren Sword clan in the first place, and they were also caught off guard by the killing moves that the elders of the Haren Sword clan had prepared long ago. Hence, they immediately suffered serious injuries, and before they could escape, they were continuously slashed by the violent attacks of the elders of the Haren Sword clan. In a short moment, more than 40 Wu Zongjing from the Demon Sword sect side were killed by the Haren Sword sect elders. The remaining Wu Zongjing did his best to resist the violent attacks of the Haren Sword sect elders, who did not hesitate to consume their Jin Yuan. They had naturally noticed the situation of the martial ancestor realm cultivators on their side screaming and being killed. They were definitely afraid, but they had no choice but to face the people of the Haren Sword clan, who did not hesitate to consume a large amount of their true essence and frantically attacked. They tried their best to resist, but to no avail. Hence, it was really difficult for them to escape. What made them feel even more desperate was the existence of Yi Haoyun. At the beginning, when the Demon Sword sect and the Haren Sword sect Wu Zongjing elders found their opponents to fight, Yi Haoyun made his move. He was like a powerful killer. Even if he had crushing strength, he was still like an assassin. Relying on his strength that far surpassed Wu Zongjing, he used the Aurora Flash Shadow. When these Demon Sword sect elders struggled to resist the attacks of Elder Haren, Yi Haoyun appeared behind them like a ghost, either a palm, a fist, a finger, or a sword, chi, etc. He would always give these Demon Sword sect elders who were in danger a fatal blow. Then the Haren Sword sect elders would seize the opportunity to completely eliminate them. The Haren Sword sect elders who had already eliminated their opponents did not delay at all. They either helped the other elders who were still fighting to deal with the enemies, or blocked the escape route of the Demon Sword sect elders. In addition to Yi Haoyun's move, in just a quarter of an hour, almost all the Demon Sword sect elders of Wu Zongjing elders were killed. No one was able to escape. Even Yi Haoyun did not expect to deal with the Wu Zongjing elders of the Demon Sword sect so quickly, but fortunately it had been dealt with, so there was no need to think about other details. Yi Haoyun said to the surrounding elders, "There will be strong enemies here soon. You all quickly leave and find a place to recuperate. Don't save elixirs. Recover your Jin Qi as soon as possible, and then lead the disciples to kill the enemies." The elders basically knew that they were going to face the attack of the marquee Wu Realm elders of the Demon Sword sect, so they did not think that they could participate. They all listened to Yi Haoyun's instructions and quickly left the battlefield, retreating to the rear to recover their Zhan Qi. Sure enough, as soon as they left, for people with very tyrannical auras rushed over. Seeing all the warriors of the Demon Sword sect dead on the battlefield, the 4 people who had already arrived had a cold expression. Looking at Yi Haoyun, their eyes were filled with overflowing killing intent, and said with a biting, cold, murderous intent, "I didn't expect to be too late. You deserve to die." As early as when the people of the Demon Sword sect and the elders of the Haren Sword sect began to suffer a large number of casualties, the Demon Sword sect master and vice sect master, who were hiding in the rear and seeing that things were not going well, hurriedly went to ask for help. The 2 people came to the place where the 4 elders of the Demon Sword sect were temporarily staying and anxiously begged the 4 people to hurry up and help. Realizing that the situation was not good, the 4 people did not delay. Under the guidance of the Demon Sword sect master and vice sect master, They quickly rushed to the battlefield. But the battle ended too quickly. Even if their reaction was very decisive, by the time they arrived at the battlefield, the Wuzong elders of the Demon Sword sect had all died. Wuzong on their side were all dead, and the Haoren Sword sect's Wuzong was no longer restrained. Once they attacked the people below Wuzong, the consequences and impact would be very serious. The 4 Marquis Wu realm elders of the Demon Sword sect did not have the intention to talk nonsense and directly attacked Yi Haoyun. There was no so-called probing, and the moment they attacked, they went all out. From the fact that Yi Haoyun did not escape and waited for them to arrive, it could be seen that Yi Haoyun was not simple. After all, no one could be an idiot. Since he dared to stay in place and wait for them, he must have something to rely on. And with their lifetime of martial arts experience, once the enemy was determined, it would be a life and death battle. Even if the enemy was far weaker than them, they would definitely be prepared and would not underestimate anyone. There was no such thing as probing. As long as they could kill the enemy, they would do whatever it took. The most important thing was to survive. And when the 4 of them attacked together, Yi Haoren, Su Mingxin, Yi Yuanshan, and Li Qingya, who had been hiding and waiting on the side, also attacked together. Each of them locked onto one person, and a powerful killing move that they had prepared long ago quietly attacked the 4 people from the Demon Sword sect from behind. And Yi Haoyun, who was facing the attack of the 4 people from the Demon Sword sect, naturally would not sit still and wait for death. Among the 4 people from the Demon Sword sect, 2 of them were Marquis Wu late stage, and 2 were Marquis Wu intermediate stage. Although Yi Haoyun's current strength was comparable to Marquis Wu late stage experts, after all, he had never fought a real battle, and was far from being able to face the attacks of 4 people at the same time. Therefore, when the 4 people from the Demon Sword sect arrived, Yi Haoyun, who was always on guard, used Aurora Flash at the moment they attacked, avoiding their attacks with the fastest speed. And when the 4 people from the Demon Sword sect failed to attack, they did not continue to deal with Yi Haoyun. Yi Haoren and the other 3 people's attacks had already arrived behind them. The intense sense of crisis made them have no choice but to quickly get out of the dangerous situation. Yi Haoren and the other 3 people had been preparing their killing moves for a long time and sealed off their escape routes. If they wanted to get out of the crisis, the 4 people from the Demon Sword sect could only move forward. It had to be said that the 4 people from the Demon Sword sect were experienced and reacted quickly. While their bodies moved forward quickly, the majestic Zhenyuan in their body quickly condensed into a Zhenyuan shield behind them, protecting their backs. The 4 people from the Demon Sword sect had already been in the Marquis Wu realm for many years. Although because of the environment of the world, they had been sleeping in the secret territory, but their strength had been obtained through countless life and death battles. They could use their strength like an extension of their arm. In addition, they had a comprehension of martial arts that surpassed Wu Zongjing. If they fought one-on-one, Yi Haoren and the others might not necessarily win. Yi Haoren and the others were naturally aware of this situation. Although they were confident in their own strength, now was not the time to show off their individual strength. In order to capture the Demon Sword City as soon as possible, to complete their goal of revenge, and to minimize casualties to the greatest extent, they had to use extraordinary means to win by surprise. There was no need to use unscrupulous means to deal with the enemy. The most important thing was to survive. Yi Haoren and the others naturally understood this principle very well. Therefore, in order to be more confident, Yi Haoyun chose to attract the enemy's attention on the surface, while Yi Haoren and the others took advantage of the fact that the Demon Sword sect's people failed to attack Yi Haoyun, waiting for an opportunity to launch a sneak attack. Just as the 4 people from the Demon Sword sect were using all their strength to avoid the fatal attacks of Yi Haoren and the others, Yi Haoren, who had escaped from the 4 people's attack at the beginning, returned and appeared in front of the 4 people from the Demon Sword sect. The faces of the 4 people from the Demon Sword sect changed greatly, revealing a frightened expression. Yi Haoren used all his strength to display the heaven-covering palm. Dozens of extremely powerful palm prints rapidly attacked the 4 people from the Demon Sword sect at a speed faster than the speed of sound, sealing the space in front of the 4 people from the Demon Sword sect. Yi Haoyun's attack made the already precarious situation of the 4 Demon Sword sect disciples even worse. Knowing that they couldn't escape, the 4 Demon Sword sect disciples crazily revolved every bit of strength in their bodies, adding it to the true essence shields around their bodies. They were prepared to resist this attack head-on. Yi Haoren and the other 4 people's powerful attacks finally landed on the Zhanyuan shield of the 4 people from the Demon Sword sect. The collision of the extremely powerful forces produced an earth-shattering sonic boom, like a thunderclap that shook the heavens, resounding throughout the Demon Sword City. Violent energy spread out in all directions, sweeping through and destroying all the buildings within a radius of several hundred feet. Yi Haoren and the other 4 people from the Demon Sword sect were sent flying backwards by the violent energy impact, barely stopping after flying back several hundred meters. Their internal organs had all suffered heavy injuries. However, they didn't sit down to recuperate. Instead, they ate a vitality pill and quickly rushed back, wanting to confirm the situation of the 4 people from the Demon Sword sect. Today, no matter what, they had to make the 4 marquee Wu Realm cultivators from the Demon Sword sect stay. They absolutely couldn't let them escape. Chapter 49. At this time, the situation of the 4 people from the Demon Sword sect was not optimistic, because the true strength of Yi Haoren's group was not any worse than theirs, and in addition to the fact that they had been accumulating their strength for a long time, they had been caught in a pincer attack. Although they had hastily tried their best to defend, the killing moves of Yi Haoren's group of 4 had finally broken through their true essence shields, and the remaining power had struck their bodies. What was worse was that they had to bear the powerful impact of the violent collision between the front and the back. The 2 weaker Marquis Wu intermediate stage people were seriously injured and fell to the ground. Looking at the way they kept coughing up blood, it was likely that they were half dead. The remaining 2 Marquis Wu late-stage people were also seriously injured and fell to the ground. The black brocade robes on their bodies were stained with a large amount of blood, and their battle strength was reduced by 70 to 80%. Yi Haoren and the others, who quickly returned, saw the situation of the 4 people from the Demon Sword sect. Without the slightest hesitation, regardless of the injuries in their bodies, they once again attacked the seriously injured 4 people from the Demon Sword sect. In order to prevent the 2 Marquis Wu late-stage people from the Demon Sword sect to counterattack before death, Yi Haoren and the others did not get close to them. Instead, they changed their positions to form an encirclement around the 4 people from the Demon Sword sect, cutting off all escape routes. Then they all used the heaven-covering palm technique of the divine martial heavenly art. The heaven-covering palm technique was a palm technique of the divine martial heavenly art. It was very powerful, but it consumed a lot of energy. Just now, Yi Haoyun used this set of palm technique to block the 4 people from the Demon Sword sect. The golden palm print sent out by Yi Haoren and the others contained a powerful force and attacked the 2 Marquis Wu late-stage people who still had the strength to fight. As for the 2 Marquis Wu intermediate stage people who fell to the ground, it was obvious that they were not far from death. It was not too late to kill them after dealing with the 2 late-stage people. This was destined to be the most aggrieved and desperate moment for the 2 late-stage Marquis Wu of the Demon Sword sect. It had only been a few days since they were awakened from their slumber in the secret realm. They hadn't even had the chance to show off their skills when they were ambushed by the enemy. Their bodies were severely injured. Most of their ribs were broken, and they didn't have much strength left. The 2 of them had already predicted that today's outcome would be disastrous. Originally, he had wanted to retaliate when Yi Haoren and the others approached and drag one of them down with him. He hadn't expected that the enemy would be so cautious. Not only did they not approach, They even surrounded him and would rather consume a large amount of true essence to attack him. As a result, the two from the Demon Sword sect had no place to use their trump cards. They could only muster their remaining strength to resist the attacks from Yi Haoran's team of 5, putting up a final struggle. The result was obvious. In the end, the two late-stage Marquis Wu of the Demon Sword sect were killed by Yi Haoran's team of 5 after exhausting their strength. Then, the remaining two mid-stage Marquis Wu who were about to die were also killed by Yi Haoran's two palms. After killing the powerful enemies, Yi Haoran and the others didn't relax. Regardless of the worsening injuries in their bodies, they added another blow to the corpses of the 4 people from the Demon Sword sect. Then, they carefully returned to the Haoran Sword sect's camp in the Demon Sword City. It wasn't until they returned to the camp that Yi Haoran's team of 5 breathed a sigh of relief and relaxed. Without time to heal their injuries, Yi Haoran summoned the several elders who were guarding the camp and said, "This time the ultimate strength of the Demon Sword sect has been dealt with by us. The enemy's Wuzong experts are almost all dead. The Demon Sword sect is no longer a fatal threat to us. Pass down my order to leave behind 2 elders and a small number of disciples to maintain vigilance and defense. The rest of the people are to join the battle and capture the Demon Sword City as quickly as possible. Also, the Demon Sword sect's sect master and vice sect master must be found. If they are alive, I want to see them. If they are dead, I want to see their corpses." Whether or not the Demon Sword sect's sect master was still alive had a great impact on the current battle between the Haoran Sword sect and the Demon Sword sect. Even if only one of the Demon Sword sect's sect master or vice sect master was alive, there was still a leader among the hundreds of thousands of people in the Demon Sword sect. This would cause great hindrances and casualties to the Haoran Sword sect. If both of them were killed or captured, then the hundreds of thousands of people in the Demon Sword sect would lose their leader and be like a sheet of loose sand. The Haoran Sword sect would only need to pay a very small price to capture the Demon Sword City and eliminate the Demon Sword sect's forces to the greatest extent. The Haoran Sword sect had already guessed the opponents of Yi Haoran's team from the earth-shattering explosion just now. Just as they were worrying about Yi Haoran's team, they saw the 5 of them return safely and even brought back exciting news. While they were in a joyous mood, the elders who understood the stakes of this matter went to pass on Yi Haoran's orders. After they left, Yi Haoran's team of 5 began to heal their injuries. Soon, the news of Yi Haoran's team annihilating their opponents and launching an all-out attack spread to all the Haoran Sword sect members who were fighting at the front lines. The morale of the Haoran's disciples was greatly boosted. Under the leadership of more than 100 elders, they were unstoppable. They pushed forward and broke through the Demon Sword sect's defensive line one after another. They had already captured half of the Demon Sword sect's territory and forced the Demon Sword sect to retreat step by step, suffering heavy casualties. Although the people of the Demon Sword clan fought desperately and used all their means, the elders of the Haoran Sword clan were the vanguard who relied on their tyrannical strength. Under the protection of the true essence, the elders of the Haoran Sword clan dashed all the way. Hidden weapons, poisons, and other means couldn't break the true essence shield at all. Without any restraints, the Demon Sword sect's people were quickly broken through by the Haoran's elders. Following closely behind, the Haoran's disciples naturally began to expand the battle results, wantonly killing the enemy. At the same time, the Merit and Virtue Palace Master Wang, Li, and Exam Palace Master Lin Chen each brought 2 Wuzong late-stage elders. They hid their figures and hid from the sight of the Demon Sword sect's people, secretly arriving at the back of the Demon Sword City. This was the last door to the Demon Sword Peak. Hiding in a house, the Merit and Virtue Palace Master Wang Li said, "This is the last door to the Demon Sword Peak. According to our observation and analysis, if the Demon Sword sect's sect master and vice sect master didn't escape from the Demon Sword City immediately, then it's most likely that they're hiding nearby. As long as they're still in the city, the Demon Sword sect will retreat step by step with our attacks. They'll inevitably continue to ask for help, or eventually retreat to the Demon Sword Peak through this place. At that time, we'll seize the opportunity to capture them alive. If we can't capture them alive, then we'll directly kill them. Exam Palace Master Lin Chin said, "And what you said makes sense. Then we'll go into hiding first and carefully investigate. Let's see if we can discover their tracks in advance and adapt to the situation." After saying that, the 6 people split up and went to investigate the situation. At this time, in a hidden house, the Demon Sword Sect Master and Vice Sect Master forced themselves to calmly deal with the battle situation in the Demon Sword City, issuing orders one after another. However, the panic in their eyes from time to time betrayed their uncalm state of mind. The foundation that the Demon Sword Sect relied on was actually killed by the Haran Sword Sect. The 2 hid in the distance and saw with their own eyes the 4 seniors of the Demon Sword Sect being killed by the Haran Sword Sect Master Yi Haran and others. This caused their originally calm state of mind to collapse. Marquis Wu realm experts were above Wu Zongjing. They were the limit of power that could be accommodated by heaven and earth, and were targeted by heaven and earth. No matter the foundation of any power, once a Marquis Wu realm expert appeared in the current world, it would be fine if they didn't make a move. However, once they made a move, their unique aura that was different from Wu Zongjing's would be noticed by heaven and earth. They could only be exposed to heaven and earth for 5 days. Once this time limit was exceeded, they would be struck by lightning. This was the lesson that many Marquis Wu realm experts had learned in blood. Chapter 50. Yi Haran's family naturally knew the Demon Sword Venerable and his Vice Sect Master. The Demon Sword Sect and the Haran Sword Sect were mortal enemies, and the important figures of both sides had relevant information about each other. What did they see today? Yi Haran and the others actually had the strength to match the Marquis Wu realm. In today's world, it was absolutely impossible to break through to the Marquis Wu realm. Only Yi Haran and the others had the heaven-defying strength to fight against the Marquis Wu realm when they were Wu Zongjing. Now that their strong reinforcements were all dead, and Wu Zongjing's martial artists were almost completely wiped out, how could they fight? No matter how many people they had, they wouldn't be enough to kill the Haran Sword Sect. There was no hope at all. If it weren't for the fact that the Demon Sword Sect couldn't be in chaos right now and needed the 2 of them to preside over the overall situation, the 2 of them would have already run away. The Vice Sect Master of the Demon Sword Sect looked at the Demon Sword Venerable and said anxiously, "We can't go on like this. We don't have the high-level combat strength of Wu Zongjing, and we can't stop the advance of the Haran Sword Sect. The casualties are very high now, and the Haran Sword Sect has already occupied half of the city. If there's no other way, we won't be able to hold on for long." The Demon Sword Venerable was also clear about the current bad situation. In the end, his expression changed a few times, and he hardened his heart and said, "You've seen the strength of the Haran Sword Sect's Yi Haran. Wu Zongjing is simply sending himself to death if he goes up. The 4 seniors were also killed by them. If we want to protect the Demon Sword Sect, there's only one way now, and that is to continue to go to the secret realm to invite the seniors of the sect. I just don't know if there's enough time." Hearing the Demon Sword Venerable's words, the anxious Vice Sect Master of the Demon Sword Sect hesitated and said, "Is this okay? Let's not talk about whether or not we can open the secret realm. If there's no other choice, we can give up the Demon Sword City and hide in the Demon Sword Mountain Range with some elite disciples. After the Haran Sword Sect leaves, we can rebuild the sect. There's no need to invite people." It was no wonder that the Vice Sect Master of the Demon Sword Sect was hesitant. The sect's secret realm could not be opened at any time. After opening the secret realm for the first time, it would take at least 15 days before it could be opened again. Today was the 14th day since the first time the Demon Sword Sect opened the Mystic Realm and invited the 4 seniors who had died in battle. If they wanted to open the mystic realm, they would have to wait until tomorrow. Furthermore, after inviting the seniors from the secret realm out, he would have to provide them with a lot of elixirs or pills to restore them to their peak strength. Although the mystic realm could block the suppression and rules of heaven and earth, and the abundant energy of heaven and earth could make experts sleep to prolong their existence, it was impossible for them to escape. However, sleeping in a mystic realm could only guarantee that a cultivator would consume the least amount of energy to maintain their lifespan. After leaving the mystic realm, they would still need spirit herbs or pills to restore their peak strength. All of these required time. It wasn't impossible to invite the seniors from the secret realm again, but what worried the Demon Sword sect master and vice sect master was whether the Demon Sword sect would be able to hold on until then based on the Howren Sword sect's offensive. The two of them had no confidence in their hearts. Just as the two of them were thinking, the situation of the battle at the front came again. The Howren Sword sect's offensive was getting fiercer and fiercer. The people of the Demon Sword sect were desperately resisting, but the disparity in strength was too great. If there was no high-level battle strength to restrain the Howren Sword sect, the people of the Demon Sword sect would definitely guess that their high-level battle strength was missing or even destroyed. At that time, the situation of the battle would collapse at any time. The tense situation could not be delayed any longer. Demon Sword Venerable thought for a moment and finally made a difficult decision. His whole person was like a deflated balloon, slumping on the chair and weakly saying, "Choose a group of disciples and retreat. We will first return to the Demon Sword Peak and then hide in the Demon Sword Mountain Range. The rest of the disciples will be left to fate." The vice sect master of the Demon Sword sect looked at the deflated Demon Sword Venerable with some sympathy. Although he had always been at odds with the Demon Sword Venerable, and the two of them were like fire and water in the past, it had to be said that the Demon Sword Venerable, as a sect master, still had the necessary decisiveness and courage. If this decision was made by him, he might not have dared to make it. Making this decision meant giving up the majority of the disciples of the Demon Sword sect and allowing the Howren Sword sect to slaughter them. Giving up the headquarters of the Demon Sword sect that the Demon Sword sect had operated for thousands of years and allowing the Howren Sword sect to wantonly destroy it. Giving up the dignity of a sect master of a super sect would mean that he would be ridiculed by the younger generation in the future and be engraved on the pillar of shame of the Demon Sword sect. Without saying anything, the vice sect master of the Demon Sword sect cupped his hands towards the Demon Sword Venerable and went out to get busy. It didn't take long for the vice sect master to gather several hundred elite disciples of the Demon Sword sect. In fact, this was all considered before the battle with the Howren Sword sect. Before thinking about victory, they had to think about defeat first. They had to make preparations in advance and leave a way out, so as to avoid being flustered when the time came. These disciples were all candidates that the Demon Sword sect had considered in advance to keep as seeds. Of course, the total number of candidates was far more than these. However, time was tight and the operation had to be kept secret. In a short period of time, they could only gather these several hundred people. The vice sect master of the Demon Sword sect said with a dignified expression, "Now the war is not good. The strength of the Howren Sword sect is beyond our expectations. Our high-level combat power has been completely wiped out. If we continue to resist, we will only suffer casualties. As a last resort, the sect master and I have decided to carry out the final plan to preserve the seeds of our Demon Sword sect and rebuild the sect. You are the candidates for the seeds. The sect master and I will take you back to the Demon Sword Peak through the secret passage. Bring the necessary materials and then enter the Demon Sword Mountain Range. After the Howren Sword sect retreats, the sect will be rebuilt." Hearing the vice sect master's words, the several hundred disciples who had already guessed what it meant naturally understood what this meant. Everyone's eyes revealed a touch of sadness. Although they were Devil Path disciples, they were cruel and merciless, and they only believed in themselves. However, they were not alone in the sect. It was absolutely impossible to survive alone in a Devil Path sect. Since they could escape from the battlefield as seeds, it meant that the hundreds of thousands of disciples who were still fighting outside had to delay time for them to escape. The final result was destined to not have a good ending. At this time, the Demon Sword Venerable said to the Vice Sect Master, "Don't waste time, hurry up and leave. Now, those Wuzong of the Haran Sword Sect must be looking for you and me. Although this place is hidden, they will find it sooner or later. Once they find out, with their strength, they won't be able to escape." After saying that, the Demon Sword Venerable and the Vice Sect Master led the several hundred disciples and left this place. They were on guard all the way to a well. The Demon Sword Venerable didn't explain and directly jumped into the well. The Vice Sect Master of the Demon Sword Sect also jumped into the well. Seeing this, the several hundred disciples also jumped into the well. Just like this, the Demon Sword Venerable and the others didn't leave from the back door of the Demon Sword City like the Merit Palace Master Wang, Li, and the others thought. Instead, they quietly left through the secret passage and returned to the Demon Sword Peak. Wang, Li, Lin Chen, and the others who didn't know anything were still searching for the traces of the Demon Sword Venerable and the Vice Sect Master. Finally, after following the people of the Demon Sword Sect, Wang, Li, Lin Chen, and the others found the hidden house where the Demon Sword Venerable and the others were at. Seeing that the house was already empty, Lin Chen's expression was somewhat unsightly as he said, "They couldn't have escaped through the secret passage, right? Damn it, we should have known that there is a secret passage in the Demon Sword City. There is one in our Haran City. With the cunning of the Demon Sword Sect, there is no reason that the Demon Sword City doesn't have one. This is troublesome they still escaped." Wang, Li, and the others' expressions were also very unsightly. The sect master and the others didn't hesitate to get injured to solve the most troublesome problem. They only ordered them to search for the missing people. In the end, they still messed it up and let the other party escape. How were they going to explain this? Although the enemy was a sect master and wouldn't be so easy to catch, after searching for half a day, they still didn't even see their shadow and escaped. How were they going to face the sect master and the others? Wang Li's expression was sullen as he said, "Damn it, the sect master ran away, but the people of the Demon Sword Sect are still here. Didn't we all bring gunpowder? Let's go. Blow up the back door and completely block it. I want none of the people of the Demon Sword Sect to escape. Completely annihilate these demon bastards." When Lin Chen and the others heard Wang Li's words, they didn't hesitate as they turned and headed towards the back of the Demon Sword City. The people they wanted to capture had already escaped. Now the only thing they could do was to expand the results of the battle and reduce the casualties to offset their incompetence. Not long after, a huge explosion was heard. The back door of the Demon Sword City was blocked by the rubble of the city wall, cutting off the only escape route for the remaining people of the Demon Sword Sect in the city. After blowing up the city wall and blocking the city gate, Wang Li, Lin Chen, and the others returned to the place where the Haran Sword Sect and the Demon Sword Sect were fighting. Then, without any hesitation, they joined the battle. In order to reduce the responsibility of their incompetence, the 6 of them gave it their all. Relying on their powerful strength, they directly destroyed all the traps in their way. Leading the surrounding disciples of the Haran Sword Sect, they crazily slaughtered the people of the Demon Sword Sect and rushed forward quickly. Under the increasingly fierce attacks of the Haran Sword Sect, the people of the Demon Sword Sect, who had already guessed that they wouldn't receive any reinforcements, gradually showed signs of collapse. Up until now, because there was no longer Wuzong's restraint, the number of casualties of the Demon Sword Sect side under the participation of the elders of the Haran Sword Sect far exceeded yesterday's. Including the people of the Demon Sword Sect from yesterday, more than 200,000 people had died. The remaining less than 300,000 people of the Demon Sword Sect knew that they were no match for the enemy and didn't have the courage to continue fighting to the end. One by one, they began to show signs of retreat. Chapter 51. The people of the Demon Sword sect showed signs of retreating, and the fierce battle in the city began to collapse. Under the fierce offensive of the Howren Sword sect, the people of the Demon Sword sect retreated step by step. They didn't have the heart to continue fighting, and frantically looked for any place to hide from the Howren Sword sect. The figures of the Howren Sword sect, disciples chasing after the people of the Demon Sword sect, were everywhere in the Demon Sword City. However, the rear gate of the Demon Sword City had been blocked, and there was no way out. The people of the Demon Sword sect couldn't retreat to the Demon Sword Peak through the back gate. If they wanted to escape, they could only climb over the city wall or break through the front gate. They had to break through the blockade of the Howren Sword sect and escape through the front gate. It was definitely unrealistic to break through the pursuit of the Howren Sword sect from the front, so they could only jump over the city wall. Although the Demon Sword City wasn't as majestic and huge as the Howren Sword sect's Howren City, the height of the city wall was still 15 jong, 45 meters. If they jumped down from such a high wall, only the disciples who had reached the Wuling realm could guarantee their safety. Those who were below the Wuling realm could only dream about it. If they didn't die, they would be injured. However, if they were caught by the people of the Howren Sword sect, they would also die. There was still hope to escape by jumping over the city wall, but the people of the Demon Sword sect didn't care about anything else. A large number of people of the Demon Sword sect gathered on the city wall and jumped out of the city. The disciples of the Howren Sword sect naturally noticed this situation. Of course, they didn't want to let the people of the Demon Sword sect go, but there were too many people, and they couldn't climb up the city wall to stop them. At this time, the elders of the Howren Sword sect left the people of the Demon Sword sect in front of them and used their superior strength to jump over the people of the Demon Sword sect to reach the city wall. There were no disciples of the Howren Sword sect around, so all the elders used group attacks. They didn't want to kill the people of the Demon Sword sect in one blow, as long as they could injure the people of the Demon Sword sect and prevent them from jumping off the city wall. With the efforts of everyone in the Howren Sword sect, very few people managed to escape from the Demon Sword sect. Only a few thousand people. The remaining nearly 300,000 people of the Demon Sword clan were all killed by the people of the Howren Sword clan, and the killing only ended at night. The ground of the Demon Sword City was stained with blood, and the air was filled with the smell of blood. After killing all the people of the Demon Sword clan in front of them, all the people of the Howren Sword clan were exhausted, and they sat down on the ground to rest. Since there were no more enemies, the disciples of the Howren Sword sect relaxed. Even the elders of the Howren Sword sect were exhausted. They casually found a place to rest. After resting for about an hour, the elders ordered the disciples of the Howren Sword sect to clean up the battlefield. Then they retreated back to the camp in Demon Sword City. At this time, in the tent in the center of the camp, only Yi Howren and Yi Haoyun were present. The Merit Hall Master Wang Li, the Examination Hall Master Lin Chen, and the other 5 were asking for forgiveness. Yi Haoren looked at Wang Li, Lin Chen, and the other 5. He sighed and said, "Fine. Since we didn't catch them, it can be considered that their lives weren't meant to end. The punishment for your incompetence will be put aside for the time being. Everything will be discussed after we return to the sect." Wang Li, Lin Chen, and the other 5 naturally couldn't wait for such an outcome. They thanked Yi Haoren in unison for his forgiveness. As long as there was a buffer time, they could redeem themselves. Although it was impossible for them to obtain great merits all of a sudden, no matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. Every bit of responsibility would be reduced. They didn't dare to rely on their high status and experience to challenge the rules of the Howren Sword sect. That was no different from courting death. The rules of the Howren Sword sect had been amended by Yi Tianzong. The rules of the sect were more reasonable in all aspects. At the same time, they were more strict. With Yi Tianzong's invincible strength and prestige, the rules were never discounted. Anyone who dared to challenge the rules of the sect would end up very miserable. The battle had been won. The enemies were almost completely annihilated. Yi Haoren didn't say anything and directly let everyone rest. The rest of the matters could be discussed tomorrow. After everyone left, Yi Haoyun said, I didn't expect that we would be able to capture Demon Sword City in just 2 days. Originally, we planned to take at least 5 days. This way, after we finish our objective of capturing Demon Sword Peak tomorrow, we can return to the sect. It's a pity that the Demon Sword sect master and vice sect master ran away. Yi Haoren said with a smile, Don't be unsatisfied. We didn't expect such a result at the beginning. Although we have confidence in our disciples, the situation of the battle is unpredictable. No one can predict the final result in advance. Fortunately, we won. Now, the Demon Sword sect has gathered nearly 500,000 people. Wu Zongjing's army was basically wiped out, except for a few thousand people under Wu Zongjing who escaped. The rest were wiped out by our Haoren Sword sect. Our disciples only suffered less than 20,000 casualties. The Marquis who they invited to guard the sect was also wiped out by us. In this battle, the overall strength of the Demon Sword sect was almost 90% lost. Now, the Demon Sword sect only has the sect master and vice sect master, as well as tens of thousands of people at other borders. If they want to recover, they can forget about it for at least 70 or 80 years. What's more, will we let the Demon Sword sect recover their strength in peace? Hearing this, Yi Haoyun immediately said with some excitement, Haha, that's right. With us here, how can we let the Demon Sword sect recover their strength in peace? How can the Demon Sword sect target us in the past? We will use all of it on them in the future. How can the hatred of thousands of years be simply forgotten after a fight? Humph. Yi Haoren said, That's the truth. Well, if there's nothing else, go and heal your injuries. Our injuries haven't recovered yet. Tomorrow we will attack the Demon Sword Peak. Just in case, we must heal our injuries as soon as possible. Yi Haoyun said, Well, I know. Big brother, if there's nothing else, you can go back and heal your injuries. I'm going back. After saying that, Yi Haoyun left the tent and returned to his residence to continue healing his injuries. Yi Haoren then explained some things and returned to his residence to continue healing his injuries. The night passed without any waves. Soon the next day came. After a whole night's rest, the disciples of the Haoren Sword sect were full of energy again, and their condition returned to normal. After all the trivial matters were completed, Yi Haoren looked at the densely packed disciples of the Haoren Sword sect in front of him and said in a clear voice, Yesterday, we won the battle with the Demon Sword sect. All the obstacles to the Demon Sword Peak have been swept away. Today, we will attack the Demon Sword Peak and attack the headquarters of the Demon Sword sect. We will take revenge for the sins and hatred of the Demon Sword sect. A tooth for a tooth, blood for blood. A tooth for a tooth, blood for blood. The disciples of the Haoren Sword sect shouted this sentence. After shouting it 9 times, Yi Haoren waved his hand to signal them to stop. Yi Haoren said loudly, Let's go. Then he led the way with Haoren, Yi Haoyun, Yi Yuanshan, and the others. Behind them, more than 180,000 disciples of the Haoren Sword sect strode toward the back gate of the Demon Sword City. When they arrived at the blocked back gate of the Demon Sword City and looked at the huge piles of rubble, Yi Haoren and the others showed their might and destroyed the rubble blocking the gate. Then they opened the back gate of the Demon Sword City and continued to advance toward the Demon Sword Peak. There were no obstacles along the way. The people of the Haoren Sword sect directly climbed the Demon Sword Peak. As the headquarters of the Demon Sword sect, the Demon Sword Peak was densely covered with all kinds of powerful traps and mechanisms. If the people of the Demon Sword sect were still there at this time, only 10,000 people would be enough to make the Haoren Sword sect badly battered and suffer heavy casualties. But unfortunately, the sect master and vice sect master of the Demon Sword sect didn't put up any unnecessary resistance. It wasn't that they couldn't activate these traps, but that they didn't have enough manpower. If they stayed and continued to rely on the traps of the Demon Sword Peak to resist, they would be targeted by Yi Haoren and the others. Then, it was very likely that they wouldn't be able to escape. The rest of the thousands of people of the Demon Sword sect who were lucky enough to escape from the Demon Sword City had long been scared out of their wits by the Haoren Sword sect. They directly fled into the Demon Sword Mountain Range and didn't return to the Demon Sword Peak at all. There was no one on the Demon Sword Peak. The people of the Haoren Sword sect smoothly occupied the entire Demon Sword Peak. However, with the reminder of the elders, the disciples of the Haoren Sword sect didn't casually rush into the buildings of the Demon Sword sect. During this period, the important places of the Demon Sword sect, such as the Scripture Pavilion and the Treasure House, were also found by the Haoren Sword sect. These places were the most important parts of the Demon Sword sect. Looking at the flames that were still burning, they were all set by the people of the Demon Sword sect. It must have been set by the Demon Sword sect master and vice sect master when they left the Demon Sword Peak. Although the things inside were very important, Yi Haoren and the others didn't rush to put out the fire or anything. These things on the surface weren't the real heritage of the Demon Sword sect. The real Scripture Pavilion and the Treasure House must be hidden in unknown places. Their Haoren Sword sect's own cultivation methods, martial skills, and other original copies, as well as important treasures, were all hidden in secret places that only a few people knew about. On the surface, there were only some insignificant things like handwritten manuscripts. In an emergency, they directly burned them. At most, they would feel heartache. It wasn't a big deal. All the first-rate sects, and above, basically did this in order to prevent any unexpected situations and ensure the inheritance of the sect. Yi Yuanshan stood on the Demon Sword Peak. The corners of his eyes were moist as he said in a trembling voice, "In my lifetime, I can finally fight my way up the Demon Sword Peak to take revenge. Father, Mother, my brothers and friends, I, Yi Yuanshan, have finally avenged you, but this is still not enough. I swear to you that one day I will personally destroy the Demon Sword sect." Beside him, Li Qingya silently accompanied Yi Yuanshan. On the other side, Yi Haoren asked the examination hall master, Lin Qin, "How are the gunpowder?" Lin Qin replied, replying to sect master, "It won't take long for everything to be done. This time, we still have more than 10,000 kilograms of gunpowder left." In order to avoid triggering the traps and causing unnecessary casualties, our disciples didn't enter those rooms or palaces. But since we can't get any benefits from the Demon Sword Peak, we will blow up all the important places of the Demon Sword sect. It will be enough to give the people of the Demon Sword sect a headache in the future. Chapter 52. Yi Haoren nodded and said, "Very good. Our feud with the Demon Sword sect is far from over. There will be more entanglements in the future. We must not let the Demon Sword sect be comfortable. We must find something for them to do." His words were natural. Lin Qin and the others couldn't help but nod in agreement. It didn't take long for the gunpowder to be installed. Yi Haoren summoned all the people of the Haoren Sword sect and ordered some elders to lead the disciples down the mountain and away from the Demon Sword Peak. Only the people above the late stage of Wuzong stayed on the Demon Sword Peak. After the disciples of the Haoren Sword sect withdrew to a safe place and sent out a signal, Yi Haoren and the other four, as well as the dozens of elders who stayed behind, ignited the gunpowder fuses under their feet. After igniting the fuse of the gunpowder, Yi Haoren and all the others who stayed on the Demon Sword Peak used their fastest speed and quickly rushed down the Demon Sword Peak. Although they deliberately left a long fuse, the Demon Sword Peak was thousands of feet high. Even if they were halfway up the mountain, it was still more than 1,000 feet high. In addition, the mountain road was rugged and not easy to walk on. The gunpowder would explode before they reached the foot of the mountain. Sure enough, When they were thousands of feet away from the foot of the mountain, the earth shook and the mountain shook. Rocks rolled down, followed by a series of loud explosions that resounded through the sky. A large amount of gunpowder installed on the Demon's Sword Peak by the Howran Sword sect exploded. Yi Howran and the others carefully avoided the large and small stones rolling down the mountain and finally returned to the ground safely. Yi Haoyun said with a smile, "Haha, this explosion will definitely make the people of the Demon's Sword sect hate us to death. They will have a headache." This was indeed the case. The sect master and deputy sect master of the Demon's Sword sect, who hid in the Demon's Sword mountain range, and hundreds of people were hiding on a mountain peak not far from the Demon's Sword Peak. When they heard the familiar explosion that resounded through the sky and saw the billowing smoke of the Demon's Sword Peak, everyone's anger and hatred rose to the peak. The Demon's Sword sect master, Demon's Sword Venerable, was so angry that his eyes almost popped out. He clenched his teeth so hard that blood came out. He roared with extreme hatred, "Howran Sword sect, I, Demon's Sword Venerable, will never let you go in this life. I swear that I will not let you go." After blowing up the Demon's Sword Peak, the members of the Howran Sword sect felt extremely carefree in their hearts. Under Yi Howran's command, they embarked on the journey back to the Howran Sword sect. With the end of the Howran Sword sect's revenge battle, the results of the battle would definitely spread out and be known by the various super sects. At that time, there would definitely be another wave of commotion. On the way back, they didn't encounter any accidents or obstacles. After traveling for 5 days, they finally returned to the area under the jurisdiction of the Howran Sword sect. After entering their own territory, the disciples of the Howran Sword sect were somewhat free. Along the way, they constantly shared the news of their victory with others. From time to time, they revealed some details of the battle with the Demon's Sword sect. Of course, they consciously didn't mention the gunpowder, although the Demon's Sword sect would reveal it sooner or later. When the time came, the Howran Sword sect would refuse to admit it. Then, who could do anything to the Howran Sword sect? First, they broke the blockade of many sects on all sides. Then, they completed the revenge battle. After crippling the Demon's Sword sect, the Howran Sword sect definitely had a considerable deterrent force. Their status was completely different from before. As long as the Howran Sword sect didn't take the initiative to cause trouble, no super sect would easily provoke them. After all, in the world of martial artists, strength spoke. And the only thing that could show one's strength was their battle record. The battle record of the Howran Sword sect was enough to show that no power dared to underestimate them. With the strength that the Howran Sword sect had displayed, it was enough to ensure that they could safely survive the battle between the righteous and demonic sides. After seeing through the stable situation of the Howran Sword sect for a period of time, Yi Howran's mood was particularly relaxed. He turned a blind eye to the free behavior of the Howran Sword sect's disciples. Very soon, the news of the Howran Sword sect's revenge was successful, and the news of their victory spread throughout the territory under their jurisdiction. After hearing the news, all the people in the cities and villages within the Howran Sword sect's territory cheered and celebrated the joy of victory. Many people were so happy that they cried. The Howran Sword sect had avenged their blood feud. In the past, the Demon Sword sect had committed countless massacres in the Howran Sword sect's territory. Countless people had died under the hands of the Demon Sword sect. Therefore, the people of the Howran Sword sect had a natural hostility and hatred towards the Demon Sword sect. They all looked forward to the day when they could destroy the Demon Sword sect and make the Demon Sword sect pay with their blood. In the past, the Howran Sword sect's strength wasn't enough to take revenge, so they could only endure. Now that the Howran Sword sect had crippled the Demon Sword sect and returned victorious, one could imagine the joy in their hearts. In order to thank the Howran Sword sect, these happy people carried the things they had prepared and waited on the path that the Howran Sword sect had to pass through, regardless of the distance. When they saw the Howran Sword sect's troops, They all stepped forward to thank the people of the Howren Sword sect. They insisted on stuffing the things in their hands into the hands of the people of the Howren Sword sect. If they didn't accept it, they would kneel on the ground and refuse to get up. Along the way, under the gratitude of countless people, the disciples of the Howren Sword sect finally received a huge pile of things. They couldn't carry them at all and could only hire carriages from every city they passed through to carry them. They then carried a pile of things on their backs and followed the troops back to the Tiangang Peak. The journey that would normally take 3 days took them 10 days to reach the Tiangang Peak. The disciples of the Howren Sword sect faced the crowd that came to thank them. They maintained a smile and carefully dealt with them. After 10 days, their faces were stiff. Facing the surging crowd had created a psychological shadow. It was even more torturous than the battle with the Demon Sword sect. Everyone was the same, including Yi Howren and the elders. After 10 days of walking, they were both physically and mentally exhausted. However, through the experience of these 10 days, their souls had also been thoroughly baptized. They had a deeper understanding of the responsibility they shouldered and the meaning it represented. They had a deeper understanding of the Tao of Howren in the Tao of Howren. After returning to the Tiangang Peak, Yi Tianzong looked at his family and the elders. He couldn't help but smile and say, "How was it? The journey didn't feel good, did it?" Yi Haoyan complained. Not only did it not feel good, it was simply an abyss of suffering. It was unbearable. If something like this happens again in the future, I will sneak away secretly. I don't want to face those passionate people anymore. After Yi Haoyun finished speaking with lingering fear, the elders who had experienced it personally also complained to the people who stayed on the Tiangang Peak. It was simply not a job for humans. They had never encountered such a difficult situation in their lives. After these elders complained for a while, Yi Tianzong said, "Well, now that our goal of taking revenge on the Demon Sword sect has been completed, after the news is known by the other super sects, with the strength we have shown, there will be no large-scale operations against us. At present, you don't need to worry about the matters of the sect for the time being. I will give you a few days to relax and adjust your state. After 7 days, each of you will take advantage of the stable time to develop the sect. If there is nothing else, you can go back." After listening to Yi Tianzong's words, all the elders who participated in the battle of the Demon Sword sect happily accepted the order and returned to their residence to rest. Yi Tianzong first let Yi Haoren and the others go back to rest. The matters of the battle could be discussed tomorrow. Yi Haoren and the others didn't say much. After entering the Howren Sword sect for 10 days, they were also exhausted. With Yi Tianzong in charge of the sect, there wouldn't be any problems, so they simply turned around and went to rest. After Yi Haoren and the others left, Yi Tianzong and the remaining elders began to deal with the aftermath of the nearly 20,000 casualties in the battle with the Demon Sword sect. Ling Xinyue followed Yi Tianzong and assisted him. Chapter 53. Just as Yi Tianzong had expected, the battle of revenge between the Howren Sword sect and the Demon Sword sect spread to all the first-rate sects and above in the following month. In this battle, the Howren Sword sect's 200,000 people defeated the Demon Sword sect's 500,000 people. The Demon Sword sect's people were almost annihilated. Only the sect master and the vice sect master escaped with a few people. The situation of the Demon Sword sect being completely crippled was also known by the first-rate sects and above. Even the news that Yi Haoren and the others could rival the Marquis Wu realm was widely spread by the people of the Demon Sword sect. The purpose was nothing more than to trip up the Howren Sword sect and expose the real situation of Yi Haoren and the others, putting the Howren Sword sect in the teeth of the storm. After all, being able to rival the strength of the Marquis Wu realm in Wu Zongjing wasn't rare in ancient times. However, in the present world, it was very difficult to achieve. It wasn't that the strength of the present people wasn't enough or that their aptitude wasn't enough. Rather, it was the suppression of heaven and earth. Only those peerless geniuses could achieve this. The idea of the people of the Demon Sword sect was very good. It indeed made the other sects pay a lot of attention to the Howren Sword sect. After all, the other sects weren't very familiar with the Howren Sword sect in the past. However, they more or less had some understanding of the Howren Sword sect. After all, on the surface, the Howren Sword sect was one of the 8 righteous sects in the world. Every move of the Howren Sword sect would more or less be watched by the other sections. Ever since the Demon Sword sect joined forces with the Shura sect and other evil sects to besiege the Howren Sword sect several decades ago, the strength of the Howren Sword sect had far exceeded its previous peak in just a few decades. In particular, in the beginning of the war between the righteous and evil sects, the Howren Sword sect had faced the blockade of 4 super sects with more than 1 million people. In just a month, the Howren Sword sect had defeated and annihilated the enemy. Now, the Demon Sword sect had been crippled with only 200,000 people. How could such a high increase in strength not attract attention? However, as Yi Tianzong said, it was now the war between the righteous and evil sections. The Howren Sword sect had gone through 2 huge battles. Its powerful strength had been revealed. It was in the forefront of the super sections. The Howren Sword sect had been in the war between the righteous and evil sections, and the Howren Sword sect had been through 2 great battles. Now was a special period, and as long as the Howren Sword clan did not take the initiative to provoke him, no one would be willing to provoke him. They couldn't even take care of themselves. If they still wanted to provoke the powerful Howren Sword sect, they would be courting death. Even the Sky Demon Temple, Lingyun Hall, Medicine King Valley, and other super sects that had been defeated and annihilated had not been afraid of the Howren Sword sect. However, they didn't mobilize their forces to take action again. Of course, they wouldn't stop scheming and plotting in the dark. They wouldn't let the Howren Sword sect rise so smoothly. As for the Jinbu Gate and the Shura sect, they were in a predicament. The grudges between the 2 sects and the Howren Sword sect were quite deep. Now that the Howren Sword sect's strength had increased greatly and they had taken revenge on the Demon Sword sect, would they seek revenge on them next? The Demon Sword sect's strength was in the middle of the 3 sections. However, they had been crippled by the Howren Sword sect. If the Howren Sword sect were to make a move on them, they might not be able to withstand it. With such thoughts in mind, the Jinbu Gate and the Shura sect gradually adopted a defensive strategy in their battles against the other sections. They mobilized more forces and arranged them at the border with the Howren Sword sect to defend against the Howren Sword sect's revenge. Therefore, the Howren Sword sect definitely wanted to make a move on the Jinbu Gate and the Shura sect. However, the Howren Sword sect, which had just finished its battle with the Demon Sword sect, was in the limelight. It wasn't suitable for the Howren Sword sect to make a move in the short term. Moreover, the Howren Sword sect could only deal with one of the 2 sects during the battle between the righteous and demonic sects, the Jinbu Gate and the Shura sect. The battle between the righteous and demonic sects would last for 2 years. During these 2 years, almost all the sects would engage in large-scale battles in the first half of the year to vent their accumulated hatred. After that, it would enter a period of stability, and the number of large-scale battles would be maintained at a relatively low level, until the last month when another tragic battle would erupt, which would also be the final decisive battle. The plan that Yi Tianzong, Yi Howren, and the others had agreed on was that the Howren Sword sect would temporarily stop engaging in large-scale battles. Instead, they would take advantage of this short period of stability to continue developing the Howren Sword sect until the last month when they would make a move on the Shura sect. With the development of the Howren Sword sect, all their enemies would have to be dealt with one by one sooner or later. It was just a matter of time. Compared to the Jinbu Gate and the Shura sect was weaker. Therefore, they would first settle their grudges with the Shura sect and cripple them. Under such a plan, the Howren Sword sect didn't make any big moves. Instead, they calmed down and focused on developing their own sphere of influence. They built villas and cities outside their jurisdiction and brought them into the Howren Sword sect's sphere of influence. seeing that the Haran Sword sect had calmed down and didn't show any signs of seeking revenge. The Jinbu Gate and the Shura sect heaved a huge sigh of relief. However, they didn't give up their guard against the Haran Sword sect because of this. Time flowed by. More than a year had passed in the battle between all the sects and dynasties in the profound spirit world. There were still 2 months until the end of the battle between the righteous and demonic factions. The atmosphere of the battle between all the sects had gradually turned from calm to tense. The final battle wasn't far away. In this 1 year, the stable development of the Haran Sword sect had achieved good results. Although the other sects had never stopped scheming and plotting against them, they didn't have much of an impact on the overall development of the Haran Sword sect. Most of them were resolved by the Haran Sword sect. Those that couldn't be dealt with through intelligence were dealt with through brute force. After more than a year of development, the Haran Sword sect had steadily built more villas and cities. The number of villas had reached 100. In total, the Haran Sword sect had recruited more than 100,000 people outside their jurisdiction. Basically, they had stabilized the situation of expanding their sphere of influence. At the same time, in the Heavenly Dipper Peak, the Haran Sword sect had recruited disciples twice in the 2 years since the start of the battle between the righteous and demonic factions. The number of disciples in the Haran Sword sect had reached a total of 630,000 people. The number of martial soldier inner disciples, martial master elite disciples, and Wu Ling core disciples had also increased by thousands to tens of thousands. The number of Wu Zongjing martial artists had also increased by 50. The number of Wu Zongjing martial artists in the Haran Sword sect had reached 260. During the battle between the righteous and demonic factions, the Haran Sword sect strength had not only not decreased, but had instead increased by a lot. Yi Haoran and the other higher-ups of the sect were naturally very happy to see this. At this moment, in the Haoran Great Hall, all the higher-ups of the Haran Sword sect were present. As the battle between the righteous and demonic factions neared its end, the Haran Sword sect's final opportunity to attack the Shura sect had also arrived. In the past year, the Haran Sword sect had not only developed steadily. When Yi Tianzong and the others had decided to attack the Shura sect, they had also gathered 200,000 Haran Sword sect disciples to attack the Shura sect as quickly as possible and attack the Shura Peak. After deciding on the plan to attack the Shura sect, the Haran Sword sect began to make preparations to attack the Shura sect. Every day, there would be Haran Sword sect disciples disguised as ordinary people entering Jinlua City and living as ordinary people in Jinlua City. Since the end of the battle with the Demon Sword sect more than a year ago, 200,000 Haran Sword sect disciples had secretly gathered in Jinlua City. It was also worth mentioning that the people of the Xian New Temple had also joined in, because the Haran Sword sect had cleanly crippled the Demon Sword sect. Jinbu Gate had mobilized 300,000 people to guard against the retaliation of the Haran Sword sect. They had stationed themselves in the border cities bordering the Haran Sword sect and faced off against the tens of thousands of Haran Sword sect disciples stationed there. Neither side acted blindly without thinking and acted with great restraint. The tens of thousands of Haran Sword sect disciples were worried that they would provoke the Jinbu Gate and cause a conflict. They had fewer people on their side, so they would be at a disadvantage. On the other hand, Jinbu Gate was worried that a conflict with the people of the Haran Sword sect would lead to the retaliation of the Haran Sword sect. Therefore, for more than a year, there hadn't been any major conflicts. Jinbu Gate had wantonly mobilized their forces to guard against the Haran Sword sect. As a result, Jinbu Gate stopped the war with the Xian New Temple. They no longer attacked the Xian New Temple and withdrew from the Xian New Temple's territory. The Demon Sword sect had been crippled by the Haran Sword sect, and the remaining first-rate sects had suffered heavy casualties from the combined forces of the Xian New Temple and Haran Sword sect. They no longer dared to invade. As a result, the Xian New Temple no longer had any enemies. Over the past year or so, the Mystic Maiden Palace, which did not have any external threats, had become very close to the Haoran sword clan. The relationship between the Xian Nu Temple's palace master, Zi Yunxian, and Yi Haoyun was very close. In addition, Zi Yunxian and Li Qingshi had already agreed to merge the Xian Nu Temple into the Haoran sword sect. Therefore, the Haoran sword sect had increased their support for the Xian Nu Temple, and the two sects had frequent exchanges. It was inevitable that the Xian Nu Temple would merge into the Haoran sword sect. For this reason, Yi Tianzong allowed Zi Yunxian and Li Qingshi to cultivate the divine martial heavenly technique. He also improved the Xian Nu Temple's martial arts cultivation method Xian Nu Heart Sutra to the same level as the martial arts cultivation method of the Haoran sword sect. Only after cultivating the divine martial heavenly technique did Zi Yunxian and Li Qingshi understand what kind of opportunity they had. They also understood why Yi Haoyun and Li Qingya could kill Marquis Wu with Wu Zongjing. It was all because they cultivated the divine martial heavenly technique. Since then, the two of them no longer had any complaints about the Xian Nu Temple merging into the Haoran sword sect. They only felt endlessly fortunate. Chapter 54. After cultivating Yi Tianzong's improved Xian Nu Sutra, the strength of the Xian Nu Temple increased by more than 2 times. After more than a year of exchange and learning with the Haoran sword sect, the Xian Nu Temple learned that the Haoran sword sect was preparing to attack the Shura sect. After being bullied by the Shura sect for many years, the Xian Nu Temple had long wanted to take revenge and volunteered to participate. The higher-ups of the Haoran sword sect didn't have any objections to this. After all, they were going to be a family in the future, so they could take it as a chance to get used to each other. The attack on the Shura sect this time was in the bag, and they could also let the people of the Xian Nu Temple see the true strength of the Haoran sword sect. With this thought in mind, the Xian Nu Temple sent 100,000 disciples to join the Haoran sword sect. The arrival of 100,000 Xian Nu Temple disciples made the 200,000 Haoran sword sect disciples seethe with excitement. 100,000 young and beautiful women were very attractive to the 200,000 Haoran sword sect disciples. The single Haoran sword sect disciples began to pursue the Xian Nu Temple disciples. Because everyone in the Haoran sword sect had learned Yi Tianzong's Haoran Sutra, when they pursued the Xian Nu Temple disciples, the Haoran sword sect disciples didn't pester them. That would be too degrading. Instead, they used their strengths to show off their talents and charm when they pursued the Xian Nu Temple disciples. After 2 months, most of the Xian Nu Temple disciples were successfully pursued by the Haoran sword sect disciples. The remaining Xian Nu Temple disciples were also in a state of excitement. It could be foreseen that when they returned victorious after taking revenge on the Shura sect, these 100,000 Xian Nu Temple disciples would become part of the Haoran sword sect. In fact, this was also a tacit agreement between Zi Yunxian and the higher-ups of the Haoran sword sect. They wanted to reduce the resistance of the Xian Nu Temple to the Haoran sword sect. In the blink of an eye, another 5 days passed. On this day, the 200,000 Haoran sword sect disciples and the 100,000 Xian Nu Temple disciples had gathered in Jinluo City. The Haoran sword sect didn't wait until the last month before taking action. They decided to take advantage of the fact that the Shura sect wasn't clear about the situation in Jinluo City. Because the Haoran sword sect hadn't made any moves for more than a year, in addition to the fact that they had intentionally reduced the number of Haoran sword sect disciples stationed in Jinluo City, the Shura sect's original 300,000 disciples stationed at the border with the Haoran sword sect had been reduced to 200,000. With the arrival of the last month, even if the Haoran sword sect didn't come into conflict with the Shura sect, as a precaution, the Shura sect would once again increase the number of people stationed at the border. Taking advantage of the fact that the reinforcements from the Shura sect hadn't arrived yet, the Haoran sword sect decided to break through the Shura sect's defensive line at the lowest cost and directly attack Azura City. The attack on the Shura sect this time was led by Haoran and Yi Tianzong. The elders and Haoran sword sect disciples who didn't participate in the previous battle to take revenge on the demon sword sect participated in this battle. The 100,000 disciples of the Xiannu Temple were led by Zi Yunxian and the majority of the Xiannu Temple's elders. Because there were no external enemies, coupled with the deterrence of the Haoran sword sect, the Xiannu Temple had a very stable life. For this battle against the Shura sect, more than half of the Xiannu Temple's elders came directly, standing on the city wall and looking down at the Haoran sword sect disciples. Yi Tianzong said in a clear voice, "The Shura sect and the demon sword sect have a deep enmity with us and have been entangled with each other for a long time. A year ago, we crippled the demon sword sect. Now, it's time for the Shura sect to pay the price. I don't have anything else to say except for one thing. I hope all of you can come back alive. Let's go." "Yes," the Haoran sword sect disciples said in unison. Looking at Yi Tianzong, their eyes were filled with worship and trust. Feeling the worship and trust in their eyes, Yi Tianzong couldn't help but have an impulse to look up to the sky and howl. Suppressing this impulse, Yi Tianzong couldn't help but think in his heart, "It's really easy for individuals to be influenced by groups. They would unconsciously do things that they wouldn't do in a rational state. Even with my state of mind, I was almost affected. It seems that the brainless Chinibya things I encountered in the past weren't just personal problems. However, this time, in order to reduce the casualties of the Haoran sword sect, it seems that I have to put in more effort." On the other side, Zi Yunxian of the Xiannu Temple also finished motivating the disciples of the Xiannu Temple. Then she led the disciples of the Xiannu Temple to follow the troops of the Haoran sword sect out of Jinlua City. They went all the way to the border of the Shura sect. The army of 300,000 people rode on horses with great momentum towards the border of the Shura sect. The people of the Shura sect in Jinlua City heard the rumbling sound of 10,000 horses galloping from afar, realizing that there was an unforeseen event in the Haoran sword sect. The people of the Shura sect immediately went on alert and looked into the distance nervously. As the sound of 10,000 horses galloping got closer and clearer, a black line could be seen approaching Jinlua City from afar. When the enemy got closer, the people of Jinlua City couldn't help but panic. When the troops of the Haoran sword sect and the Xiannu Temple arrived in front of Jinlua City, the people of the Shura sect stationed in Jinlua City were completely flustered. Looking at the huge troops of the Haoran sword sect and the Xiannu Temple, the people of the Shura sect couldn't help but feel their hearts skip a beat. Not interested in talking to the people of the Shura sect, Yi Tianzong waited for the troops of the Haoran sword sect and the Xiannu Temple to completely surround Jinlua City. When the troops of the Haoran sword sect and the Xiannu Temple had completely sealed off the city, Yi Tianzong waved his hand and signaled for them to attack. The disciples of the Haoran sword sect raised their iron plates and advanced towards Jinlua City in a tight formation. At the same time, Yi Tianzong led more than 70 elders of the Haoran sword sect, while Yi Haoyun led more than 60 elders of the Xiannu Temple. Together with Zi Yunxian and the others of the Xiannu Temple, they rushed towards the city gate of Jinlua City from 2 different directions. Yi Tianzong took the lead and arrived at the city gate. Then he circulated the true energy in his body and punched out an overbearing, world-suppressing fist. The tyrannical power of the fist instantly destroyed the city gate of Jinlua City. The Shura sect people who were hiding behind the city gate also suffered heavy casualties. Yi Tianzong didn't waste any time and directly opened up a path in front, pushing his way into Jinlua City. More than 70 elders followed closely behind and entered the Bloodnet City as well. Behind these people were the disciples of the Haoran sword sect. Under the leadership of Yi Tianzong and the others, they continued to expand the battlefield and capture Jinlua City. On the other side, Yi Haoyun and Zi Yunxian, who also cultivated the divine martial heavenly art, broke the city gate of Jinlua City. Then they also opened up a path in front, followed by the elders of the Haoran Sword Sect and the Xian Nu Temple. The disciples of the Haoran Sword Sect and the Xian Nu Temple also swarmed into Jinlua City. Because Jinlua City was sealed off from all sides, it took less than a day for the Haoran Sword Sect and the Xian Nu Temple to capture Jinlua City. They annihilated the 200,000 Shura sect people stationed in Jinlua City. Not a single person escaped. After capturing Jinlua City, Yi Tianzong ordered them to clean up the battlefield and rest. They would continue the attack the next day. On the second day, the Haoran Sword Sect and the Xian Nu Temple continued their attack on Jinlua City. Along the way, they were invincible. Not a single city lasted for more than a day. Under the control of Yi Tianzong, the Haoran Sword Sect and the Xian Nu Temple didn't rush to advance. They slowed down their pace and gave Jinlua City time to gather their forces. After 7 days of advancing, the Haoran Sword Sect and the Xian Nu Temple arrived at Jinlua City, the last barrier of Jinlua City. Looking at Jinlua City in front of them, Yi Tianzong ordered the Haoran Sword Sect to take the lead and attack. For this attack on Jinlua City, Yi Tianzong specially brought 30,000 kilograms of gunpowder. According to the method used to deal with the Demon Sword Sect, the Haoran Sword Sect did the same. They opened up more than 100 big holes in the walls of Jinlua City and threw the gunpowder into the holes. Following which, the Haoran Sword Sect and the Xian Nu Temple retreated at full speed. Because the gunpowder fuse was specially lengthened this time, the gunpowder only exploded after the Haoran Sword Sect and the Xian Nu Temple retreated 5 li away. The earth quaked and the mountains shook. Following an earth-shattering explosion, the walls of Jinlua City collapsed from the gunpowder explosion. While the Jinlua City suffered heavy casualties from the explosion of gunpowder, Yi Tianzong led the Haoran Sword Sect and the Xian Nu Temple back and launched an all-out attack. After less than 2 days of fierce fighting, Yi Tianzong killed the Jinlua City's Sect Master and Vice Sect Master, the 2 Marquis Wu Realm seniors that the Jinlua City had invited from the secret territory. They were killed by Yi Tianzong on the first day of the battle. In less than 2 days, the Jinlua City annihilated more than 300,000 people that the Jinlua City had hastily gathered. Yi Tianzong and Yi Haoyin led the Haoran Sword Sect and the Xian Nu Temple to the headquarters of the Jinlua City. Perhaps it was because the Jinlua City knew that it was impossible to resist the Haoran Sword Sect and the Xian Nu Temple, so there was no one on the Jinlua City. Some of the important palaces and other places had all been burned down. When Yi Tianzong and the others arrived at the Jinlua City, all they saw were ruins. Yi Tianzong and the others, who had already expected that there would be no harvest, did not linger on the Jinlua City. They retreated to the base of the Jinlua City. Then the earth quaked and the mountains shook. With an earth-shattering explosion, the gunpowder buried on the Jinlua City exploded. A large number of buildings on the Jinlua City were destroyed. Thick flames and smoke rose into the air. Not far away, on a mountain peak of the Jinlua mountain range, tens of thousands of Jinlua City members were hiding. Looking at the billowing smoke of the Jinlua City, their eyes were filled with unconcealable hatred. Chapter 55. After blowing up the Azura Peak, the Haoran Sword Sect and the Xian Nu Temple began their return journey. Along the way, they didn't encounter any attacks from the Azura Sect. Everything went smoothly as they returned to Jinlua City. In this battle against the Azura Sect, due to their superior numbers and Yi Tianzong's repeated actions, the Haoran Sword Sect and the Xian Nu Temple suffered less than 5,000 casualties. They managed to annihilate 500,000 people from the Azura Sect, achieving a glorious victory. In the battle with the Haoran Sword Sect, the Xian Nu Temple not only avenged the Azura Sect for years of oppression, but also witnessed the strength of the Haoran Sword Sect. The revenge plan against the Azura Sect had been completed. In the following period of time, until the war between the righteous and the devil ended, the Haoran Sword Sect wouldn't launch another large-scale attack. However, in order to ensure that the Haoran Sword Sect wouldn't be invaded by foreign enemies, the Haoran Sword Sect stationed 300,000 disciples at the border. These disciples would only return to the Tiangang Peak after the war between the righteous and devil sides ended. There were still 25 days before the last month of the war between the Orthodox sects and the diabolical sects, and the Howrah Sword clan launched a war against the Shura clan. In less than 10 days, they had killed 500,000 members of the Shura clan, completely reducing the overall strength of the Shura clan by more than 80%. The Howrah Sword clan's decisive and rapid action and tyrannical strength once again shocked many sections. Currently, the three super sects adjacent to the Howrah Sword sect, the Demon Sword sect and the Azura sect, had been crippled by the Howrah Sword sect. The rise of the Demon Sword sect and the Azura sect was unstoppable. With the support of the Howrah Sword sect, the Xian Nu Temple's strength increased greatly. Only the Howrah Sword sect and the Xian Nu Temple were left. Jinbu Gate was extremely nervous about facing them. After all, the enmity between Jinbu Gate, the Howrah Sword sect, and the Xian Nu Temple was very deep. A few years ago, Jinbu Gate even planned to forcibly annex the Xian Nu Temple. When the war between the righteous and devil sides began, Jinbu Gate also dispatched 300,000 people to attack the Howrah Sword sect. Jinbu Gate didn't believe that the Howrah Sword sect and the Xian Nu Temple didn't want to take revenge on them. When they noticed that the Howrah Sword sect had increased the number of Howrah disciples stationed at the border, Jinbu Gate reached an agreement with the Dry Bone Mountain. They completely stopped the war with the Dry Bone Mountain. Other than the tens of thousands of disciples who had to be stationed there for defense, they mobilized all the remaining forces. A total of more than 700,000 people were stationed at the border with the Howrah Sword sect. It was impossible for Jinbu Gate to take the initiative to attack the Howrah Sword sect. After going through 3 large-scale battles, the Howrah Sword sect's strength was off the charts. 400,000 people were able to win against 1,200,000 people. Now that the Demon Sword sect and the Shura sect were no longer holding them back, if they took the initiative to attack, they would definitely attract the full force of the Howrah Sword sect and the Xian Nu Temple. If they took the initiative to attack, they would definitely end up in the same situation as the Demon Sword sect and the Shura sect. Therefore, although the Howrah Sword sect only had less than 100,000 people stationed at the border with Jinbu Gate didn't dare to act rashly just because they had more people. Fortunately, the Howrah Sword sect didn't seem to have any intention of retaliating against Jinbu Gate. They didn't continue to increase their forces at the border because of Jinbu Gate's actions. This allowed Jinbu Gate to relax a little. However, they didn't let down their guard in the slightest. When the Howrah Sword sect took revenge on the Demon Sword sect, they didn't do anything. This caused Jinbu Gate and the Shura sect to be nervous for nothing and let down their guard. In the end, the Howrah Sword sect suddenly revealed their fangs and crippled the Shura sect. This really scared Jinbu Gate. Although they didn't show any signs of taking action now, it didn't mean that they wouldn't do anything tomorrow or the day after. In any case, Jinbu Gate wouldn't let down their guard against the Howrah Sword sect before the war between the righteous and the devil ended. Even after the war between the righteous and the devil ended, they would still leave at least 200,000 people to guard the border. The Howrah Sword sect didn't care about Jinbu Gate's actions. It wasn't that they didn't want to retaliate against Jinbu Gate, but Jinbu Gate's forces were still very strong. In addition, they were prepared. Now wasn't the best time to attack Jinbu Gate. No one stipulated that they had to attack Jinbu Gate during the war between the righteous and the devil. There were less than 100,000 disciples stationed at the border. This was because Yi Haoran and the other sect's higher-ups were confident that Jinbu Gate wouldn't dare to provoke the Howrah Sword sect. The Howrah Sword sect had risen, and its strength was no longer what it used to be. The Demon Sword sect and the Shura sect had been crippled, and their strength had been greatly reduced. Without these two sects holding them back, the Howrah Sword sect's strength was stronger than Jinbu Gate's, which had lost a lot of its forces. The Howrah Sword sect, which didn't have any plans to continue fighting outside, calmed down and continued to develop its strength. It strengthened its communication and infiltration with the Xian Nu Temple. This was to reduce the resistance of the Xian Nu Temple to the Haoran sword sect in the future. No matter how the world changed, time still passed steadily. The last month of the war between the righteous and the devil had arrived. Different from the situation of the Haoran sword sect and the other super sects around it, the other sects and various forces had all erupted into the most tragic battles. This was the last month of the war between the righteous and the devil. The scale of the war and the degree of devastation were the greatest. All the sects and forces could obtain a large amount of resources as compensation from the losing side in order to become the victorious side. The losing side had to compensate the winning side with resources. This was the result and rule that all the sects, dynasties, and other forces agreed upon. However, sects like the Demon Sword sect and the Shura sect, who had been crippled by the Haoran sword sect, didn't need to think about compensation. Almost all of their people had been killed by the Haoran sword sect, and their headquarters had been blown up. Asking for compensation? Dream on. Instead, they could extort some money from Jinbu Gate. The key to the victory of the Central Plains was the battle between the Zhou dynasty and the ancient Western country, the Hu country of the northern frontier, and the forest country of the southern wasteland. In the past 2 years, the Zhou dynasty and the ancient Western country, the Hu country of the northern frontier, and the forest country of the southern wasteland had broken out hundreds of times. The total number of casualties had reached more than 400 million people. The vast battlefield had long been soaked in endless blood. The ground was dark red, and the air was filled with a thick and nauseating smell of blood. In the final battle, the Zhou dynasty and the ancient Western country, the Hu country of the northern frontier, and the forest country of the southern wasteland had each invested 100 million soldiers. The ancient Western country, the Hu country of the northern frontier, and the forest country of the southern wasteland had each invested 100 million soldiers. The total number of soldiers was comparable to the Zhou dynasty. On every battlefield, 2 different colored waves of people charged and tangled with each other. Countless people fighting and roaring resounded in the sky above the boundless battlefield. The sky in a radius of several thousand li was covered with dark clouds. Gloomy winds howled angrily. It was as if the heaven and earth were shocked by the endless slaughter. In this final battle, the Zhou dynasty and the ancient Western country, the Hu country of the northern frontier, and the forest country of the southern wasteland were evenly matched. In fact, they even had a slight advantage. The reason for this was because the Zhou dynasty no longer had to worry about food. They had sufficient supplies, and the training of the soldiers had increased. Naturally, their strength had increased. The Zhou dynasty did not lack people. Without the shortage of food, they had a strong war potential. They did not fear the joint attack of the ancient Western country, the Hu country of the northern frontier, and the forest country of the southern wasteland. Instead, they often took the initiative to attack the 3 countries. This caused the 3 countries to feel great pressure. In the process of the great battles happening all over the profound spirit world, a month's time gradually passed. The battle between the righteous and the devil was nearing its end. In the Central Plains, the western regions, the northern frontier, and the southern wasteland, the final battle gradually came to an end. The atmosphere of war began to subside. In the end, the battle between the Zhou dynasty and the ancient Western country, the Hu country of the northern frontier, and the forest country of the southern wasteland ended with the Zhou dynasty gaining the upper hand. The other 3 countries compensated the Zhou dynasty with countless elixirs and other resources. This allowed the Zhou dynasty to cast away the shadow of defeat. The great Zhou emperor was overjoyed and directly waived 30% of the annual agricultural tax. The entire country was jubilant. Not only that, the Haoran sword sect, which was an important factor in this victory, offered a high yield of food. The Zhou dynasty's core decision makers specially allowed the Haoran sword sect to expand their jurisdiction from 3,000 li to 4,000 li. As for how they would expand, that would depend on the Howren Sword sect's ability. In the battle between the sects, there were victories and losses. The biggest winner was the Howren Sword sect. Not only did they cripple the Demon Sword sect and the Azura sect, taking revenge for many years, they also recovered the Xian New Temple. When the battle between the righteous and the devil was about to end, the Howren Sword sect and the Jinbu Gate had a round of friendly negotiations. In the end, under the threat of the Howren Sword sect and the Xian New Temple, the Jinbu Gate chose to admit defeat and compensated the Howren Sword sect with a large amount of elixirs and materials. Especially the Zhou dynasty's decision to expand the jurisdiction of the Howren Sword sect made the entire sect very happy, who didn't want their territory to expand. However, without the permission of the Zhou dynasty, no sect dared to expand their jurisdiction. The Sky Demon Temple and the Lingyun Hall were super sects that had existed for more than 100,000 years. Their strength was unfathomable, yet they didn't dare to openly violate the rules of the Zhou dynasty and only ruled a territory of 3,000 li. Although the Howren Sword sect had to find a way to expand the territory by themselves, would the Howren Sword sect find it troublesome? Definitely not. Now that the Demon Sword sect and the Azura sect were crippled, they were holed up and recovering their strength. Jinbu Gate also didn't dare to take the initiative to provoke them. Wasn't this the best time for the Howren Sword sect to expand? Although some of their previous expansion plans needed to be revised, it was a small matter compared to expanding their territory. Chapter 56. After confirming the decision to expand, the Howren Sword sect, which had been quiet for a long time, was once again mobilized, including the newly recruited 200,000 disciples and the disciples from the newly built courtyard. There were a total of 750,000 people, excluding the dozens of elders who stayed behind to guard Tiangang Peak. The Howren Sword sect launched a large-scale expansion operation under the leadership of 230 elders. Under the leadership of the Howren elders, the Howren disciples attacked all the cities and strongholds along the way, sweeping away all enemies. They avoided the area bordering the Jinbu Gate and expanded the Howren Sword sect's territory by 1,000 li in a month's time, occupying a lot of the territories ruled by the Demon Sword sect and the Shura sect. For this reason, the Demon Sword sect and the Shura sect could only swallow their broken teeth and silently recover their strength. After expanding their territory by 1,000 li, the Howren Sword sect stopped the pace of war and began to consolidate the territory they had conquered. According to the original rule, they built cities, public schools, and a series of other measures. At the same time, they sent out a small group of core disciples to continue infiltrating the expanded territory and build the Howren courtyard. After the war between the righteous and the demonic, the Howren Sword sect's large-scale expansion immediately attracted the attention of all the first-rate sects and above. Just when they didn't understand why the Howren Sword sect would suddenly go crazy and violate the rules of the Zhou dynasty, the news of the Zhou dynasty rewarding the Howren Sword sect was gradually spread to them. Because of this, these sects could only watch with envy and jealousy as the Howren Sword sect expanded their territory. They cursed the unfairness of the world for allowing the Howren Sword sect to be lucky enough to discover high-yield crops. As for the other super sects who didn't want to see the rise of the Howren Sword sect, they began to secretly carry out unknown plans. The Howren Sword sect did not pay much attention to the outside world. The most important thing now was to consolidate the territory they had conquered and develop the strength of the Howren Sword sect with all their might in preparation for the big plan that was to come. For this reason, Yi Tianzong and the higher-ups of the Howren Sword sect, as well as the higher-ups of the Howren Sword sect, as well as the higher-ups of the Xian New Temple who supported the merger of the Howren Sword sect and the Xian New Temple, spent several days discussing in detail the development of the Howren Sword sect and the Xian New Temple for the next 5 years. Finally, they formulated a 5-year plan. Just like that, the Howren Sword sect, which had completed its expansion, went into hibernation and began to quietly develop its strength. After the battle between the righteous and the devil path ended, all the sects and clans quieted down to recuperate and restore their strength. Time passed step by step in this relatively peaceful environment. The Prodigy ranking, 100 Flower ranking, Grandmaster ranking, and Mysterious Item ranking, which had stopped updating during the war between the righteous and the devil, were updated once again. The updating of these rankings once again stirred up the hearts of the martial artists. The war between the righteous and the devil had ended, and the grudges between the various sects and clans had been vented. No one wanted to have another large-scale battle. However, it was impossible for them to be idle. Thus, the rankings on these rankings became the goal of the various sects and clans to compete with each other. To a certain extent, this showed and determined the strength of the various sects and clans. The Prodigy ranking was updated every 6 months. The 100 Flower ranking was updated every year. The Grandmaster ranking was updated every 5 years, and the Mysterious Item ranking was updated every year. Especially the Prodigy ranking and the 100 Flower ranking, all the sects and forces, as well as the Zhou dynasty, participated in the competition for the rankings on these 2 rankings. The Haoran Sword sect, as the initiator, was no exception. Every update was accompanied by countless battles. However, compared to large-scale battles, these were all things that the various forces were happy to see. The Xian Nu Temple had secretly merged with the Haoran Sword sect in the 2nd year after the war between the righteous and the devil. In order to make it easier to manage the Haoran Sword sect, there was also an extra Xian Nu Palace. Zi Yunxian took the position of Xian Nu Palace Mistress and continued to lead the original Xian Nu Temple disciples. Not only did the Haoran Sword sect have more than 200,000 female disciples, they also obtained the original Xian Nu Temple's territory. However, annexing a super sect was not a small matter. In order to hide the fact that the Xian Nu Temple had merged with the Haoran Sword sect, Zi Yunxian still led 100,000 disciples of the original Xian Nu Temple to live on the Xian Nu Peak. Yi Tianzong's uncle, Yi Haoyun, accompanied Zi Yunxian to live on the Xian Nu Peak. The 100,000 disciples of the Haoran Sword sect were temporarily managed by Li Qingshi. Time passed year after year. The Haoran Sword sect had developed according to the plan. The overall strength of the sect was also increasing step by step. During the development period, various schemes and tricks were played out one by one. However, they were all resolved by the Haoran Sword sect. The Haoran Sword sect also participated in the competition for the Heaven's Pride list and 100 Flower list every year. However, they only sent out the disciples of the Haoran Dragon and Phoenix list to participate. Moreover, they all obtained good rankings. 5 years had passed during the competition for the Heaven's Pride list and 100 Flower list. The Haoran Sword sect had also developed in a low-key manner according to the plan and obtained great progress. During these 5 years, the Haoran Sword sect first promoted high-yield grain seeds in the newly expanded territory and the Xian Nu Temple. Then they repaired the city with cement, built a new public school, and promoted the basic body refining techniques. In the 3rd year after the newly conquered territory and the Xian Nu Temple's territory had stabilized, the Haoran Sword sect began to promote the emasculated Haoran Sutra to all public schools in the sect. In the 5th year, after 2 years, the Haoran Sword sect's territory had basically become familiar with the contents of the Haoran Sutra. Because of learning the Haoran Sutra, almost everyone in the Haoran Sword sect's territory had more or less the righteous aura of a scholar. In the sky, thousands of feet above the Haoran Sword sect's territory that no one could see, a vast and righteous aura of Haoran was slowly growing. Only Yi Tianzong could sense it through the vast power of his primordial spirit. On the other hand, after 5 years of development, the Haoran Sword sect's strength had once again increased by a large margin after merging with the Xian Nu Temple. Now, in the Haoran Sword sect, apart from the 9 members of Yi Tianzong's family, including Ling Xinyue, Zi Yunxian, and Li Qingshi, who were at the peak of Wuzong, the Haoran Sword sect still had 50 peak of Wuzong, more than 130 late stage of Wuzong, and more than 370 early and middle stage of Wuzong. In total, the number of Wuzong people had reached 570, excluding the number of people in Haran's courtyard. The number of Haran disciples on Tiangang Peak had increased to about 5 million people. The number of core disciples in the Wuling realm had reached 100,000 people. The overall strength of the Haran sword sect had more than doubled compared to 5 years ago. According to the plan, after 5 years of development, the strength of the Haran sword sect had reached a peak. Although Tiangang Peak was majestic, it was still crowded with 5 million disciples. It was time to move on to the next step of the plan. The next step of the plan was to make the final preparations. They would begin to break the seal of heaven and earth and increase the upper limit of martial arts in the profound spirit world. They would continue on the path of martial arts. After the Xian New Temple officially merged with the Haran sword sect, Ziyin Xian, Li Qingshi, and the other higher-ups of the Xian New Temple were stunned when they heard of the plan. They were shocked and thought that the higher-ups of the Haran sword sect had gone crazy. They were actually trying to reverse heaven and earth. They were simply courting death. However, after knowing the details of the plan and knowing that the Haran sword sect could rely on them to protect themselves even if they failed, the higher-ups of the Xian New Temple threw all thoughts of defying the heavens and being arrogant to the back of their minds. They worked together to come up with a plan for this grand plan. They did not need to worry about the main part of the plan. They just needed to think of everything that could be done in terms of the sect's preparations and cooperation. They wanted to do everything they could think of to achieve perfection without leaving any loopholes. As the Haran sword sect's preparations were nearing completion, the moment to break the seal and return heaven and earth to its peak state was about to arrive. Chapter 57. On this day in the Haran Hall, all the high-level officials of the Haran sword sect and the Xian New Temple were present. Yi Haran sat on the seat of the sect master, looked at Yi Tianzong expectantly and asked, "Tianzong, now that 5 years have passed, our strength has increased to the limit that we can reach at present, and the territory under our rule is relatively stable. Even the total population has increased to 130 million people because of the measures to encourage fertility. All aspects are almost ready. When do we start?" After Yi Haran finished speaking, everyone in the Haran Hall looked at Yi Tianzong expectantly. Yi Tianzong did not let them down. He said, "Then there is the last step of preparation, which is to gather all our disciples, including the people in the Haran courtyard, at the foot of Tiangang Peak. According to the Haran sword formation I created, we will teach these disciples the martial arts of the next realm in advance. Then we will arrange all the people in our Haran territory who have read the Haran scripture and can recite the Haran Song of Righteousness according to the formation of the 9 palaces, 8 trigrams formation. We will teach them the previous cultivation methods of the Haran sword sect below the martial soldier realm. When we take action, these people need to keep reciting the Haran Song of Righteousness to mobilize the Haran righteousness between heaven and earth for our use. After 3 months, on the day of the new year, the plan will start." After getting the affirmative answer from Yi Tianzong, everyone felt relieved. Then they were full of excitement and passion. As long as they thought of the great plan, everyone could not suppress the excitement in their hearts. Yi Haran calmed down and said with some worry, "Then how do we guard against other sects after transferring all the disciples? After all, it is impossible to hide our next action. When the time comes in order to find out our intentions, it is inevitable that they will cause us trouble." When the others heard Yi Haran's words, they also looked worried. Yi Tianzong smiled and said, "There's no need to guard against them. Since we can't hide it, we can just openly invite them to watch. We won't reveal our ultimate goal. We only need to send out invitations to invite the sect leaders or vice-sect leaders of the various sects to come and watch the Grand Supreme Elder of our Haran sword sect break through to the Marquis Wu realm. Nowadays, only Wu Zongjing is allowed. Now, our Haran sword sect is willing to take the lead. Even if they don't think we can succeed, The natural instinct of martial artists to pursue higher realms will make them participate. After all, even if our Haran Sword sect has some kind of conspiracy, we can't be so crazy as to attack all the other sects, right? As soon as he said this, the eyes of the rest of the people in the Haran Hall lit up. Yi Haoyan agreed and said, "That's right. Since we can't hide it, instead of letting others make wild guesses and test us, it's better to invite them openly. It's up to them whether they will come or not. If they continue to test and invade our territory, then we will settle accounts with them after the plan is completed. No one can say we are wrong." Hearing this, Yi Haoran's worries dissipated. He said, "Do you have any other suggestions? Let's discuss it. If not, we will act according to Tianzong's plan." The people in the Haoran Hall looked at each other and didn't think of any better suggestions. So Yi Haoran made the decision and said, "Well, since there is no better way, let's do as Tianzong said. Now, let's discuss the specific implementation plan." While the Haran Sword sect was making the final preparations, all the top sects in the Central Plains and the Zhou dynasty all received the Haran Sword sect's invitation one after another. The invitation said that the Haran Sword sect had found a way to avoid the confinement of heaven and earth and break through to the Marquis Wu realm. It invited the leaders or deputy leaders of all the sects to attend the ceremony before the sunrise of the new year. The various forces who received the invitation had different reactions. Some were serious, some were skeptical, and some were disdainful. But in the end, most of them decided to send important figures such as the deputy leaders or the highest elders. For some reason, the Zhou dynasty even sent the great Zhou imperial commanders, who ranked in the top 10 on the Guru list, as well as the great Zhou crown prince, the third prince, Princess Lianyue, and more than 2,000 people. While the entire Haran Sword sect was busy, and the people sent by various forces were on their way to the Haran Sword sect, Yi Haoran and his family arrived at the secret realm of the sect. Yi Haoran and his family belonged to the Haran Sword sect, which had existed since the founding of the sect. Their ancestor was the disciple of the founder of the Haran Sword sect and was in charge of the sect's law enforcement. Later on, following the decline of the world, the ancestors of the Haran Sword sect entered the secret realm to sleep. The Yi family was recognized as righteous and fair, and was later elected as the sect master. They had been in charge of the Haran Sword sect for nearly 2,000 years. Many of the ancestors of the Yi family were also in hibernation within the sect's secret realm. The decline of the profound spirit world did not happen overnight. Instead, it slowly changed. The phenomenon that martial artists could only break through to the Wu Zongjing realm began 200 years ago. Thus, the Yi family had many Marquis Wu realm ancestors in hibernation within the secret realm. However, the lowest seniority was in the generation of Yi Yuanshan's grandfather. Now, the grand plan of the Haran Sword sect was about to begin. When the seal of the world was broken, at the very least it would be able to accommodate existences in the Marquis Wu realm. Thus, they would awaken the ancestors of the Yi family in advance and let them participate. Thus, they would receive feedback from the world and strengthen the strength and foundation of the Yi family. This was also an important part of the plan that Yi Tianzong and the others had discussed. Yi Haoran took out a simple and unadorned jade token. Then he channeled his true essence into the token. The simple and unadorned jade token shone with a white brilliance. It gradually separated from Yi Haoran's hand and floated into the air. Then it shone brightly, and a void door appeared in front of Yi Haoran and the others. This was the entrance to the secret realm. Yi Haoran and Yi Yuanshan looked at each other and walked into the secret realm one after another. Yi Tianzong, Li Qingya, and the others waited outside. Although Yi Tianzong did not enter the secret realm, Yi Tianzong's vast primordial spirit power, which far exceeded his cultivation realm, had already observed the situation inside the secret realm through the void door. For the time being, let's call it the Haran secret realm. Yi Tianzong observed that the size of the Haran secret realm was about 10 miles. It existed by relying on the profound spirit world. Under the influence of the spirit gathering array, the secret realm could continuously absorb the profound spirit world's yuan qi. Thus, it could be used to maintain the minimum daily consumption of the people sleeping in the secret realm. Right now, the profound spirit world in the Haran secret realm was 10 times denser than the outside world. In the secret realm, there were hundreds of ice coffins arranged from inside to outside. In these ice coffins were the ancestors of the Haran sword sect. After roughly observing the situation in the Haran secret realm, Yi Tianzong did not probe further. He was not interested in these things. After all, he had already opened up similar spatial secret realms when he was traveling to other worlds. As long as his cultivation level increased, opening up a secret realm would be a piece of cake for him. As long as the environment allowed it, and there was enough energy, Yi Tianzong could reach the limit of the world's capacity in the shortest time possible. After about half an hour, Yi Yuanshan and Yi Haoran came out of the secret realm. Behind the two of them were 12 elders with pale faces. Their bodies were emitting cold qi, and their auras were weak. They had been sleeping in the ice coffins for a long time. Every day, they unconsciously absorbed a small amount of profound spirit world to maintain the lowest consumption of their life force. These 12 people were very weak at this time. Even an initial realm warrior could kill them. Not only that, Yi Tianzong saw the state of these 12 people. Their bodies had been attacked by the cold qi for a long time in the ice coffins. Although they could use the ice coffins to slow down the loss of their life force, it had already damaged their martial arts foundation. If they did not have the opportunity to recover their foundation, then they would have no hope of breaking through in this lifetime. After knowing their situation, Yi Tianzong did not have the intention to meddle in other people's business. He was not related to them, so he did not want to bother with these people. In any case, he was a big shot who had traveled through many worlds. After thousands of years, he had cultivated step by step to the myth realm. How could he be willing to have someone above him? Reincarnating into the profound spirit world to become Yi Haoran and Su Mingxin's son was a process that he had to go through. He was born into the profound spirit world through Yi Haoran and Su Mingxin. Whether it was karma or bloodline, it was natural for him to recognize them as his parents. He acknowledged the identities of Yi Tianzong, Li Qingya, and Yi Haoyan because they had lived together since they were young. They had always cared for Yi Tianzong and were more upright people. However, it was only limited to these few people. The others were not related to Yi Tianzong, nor were they familiar with him. They had never even seen him face to face. With Yi Tianzong's arrogant temperament, how could he allow more than a dozen people with extremely high seniority to appear above him for no reason? Although these 12 people were Yi Tianzong's elders, it was impossible for Yi Tianzong to open his mouth and call them. Yi Yuanshan and Yi Haoran were clear about Yi Tianzong's thoughts, but they did not say anything about it. After all, they also knew about Yi Tianzong's true origins. He was originally a heaven's pride expert of a great world. After being framed and hunted down, he accidentally reincarnated into the profound spirit world and became their descendant. The existence of the divine martial heavenly art and the Haoran true scripture was enough to make Yi Haoran and the others believe that Yi Tianzong did not lie to them. Experts had dignity and pride. Not to mention that Yi Tianzong had once told Yi Haoran and the others that he had cultivated for many years and was a super expert of the myth realm. To be honest, Yi Haoran and the others were glad and impressed that Yi Tianzong was able to put down the dignity and arrogance of an expert and become a family with them. If it were them, they would not have the confidence to say that they could do what Yi Tianzong did. Chapter 58. After being together for so many years, Yi Tianzong's pride and arrogance were clearly felt by Yi Haoran, Yi Yuanshan, and the others. It was just that he restrained himself in front of them, and this kind of person would not easily acknowledge others. Just like the 12 people in front of them, they were all from the same generation as Yi Yuanshan's grandfather. Awakening these people meant that there would be 12 elders above him out of thin air. Even Yi Haoran, Yi Yuanshan, and the others were not very happy, let alone the arrogant Yi Tianzong. If it were not to strengthen the Yi family strength and to facilitate the control and stable development of the Haran sword sect after reversing the world, they would definitely not awaken these elders. But since it was decided, Yi Yuanshan, Yi Haoran, and Yi Haoyun could only pinch their noses and accept it. As for Yi Tianzong, they were already thankful that he did not object when they first discussed this matter. Now that he did not want to pay attention to them, Yi Haoran and Yi Yuanshan naturally did not have any objections. Yi Yuanshan and Yi Haoran also had plans for these elders. After they recovered their strength, Yi Tianzong and the others wanted to fight with them, first to let them understand that they were not weak. Then Yi Tianzong would display his invincible strength to deter them and let them live in the sect as grand elders for the time being. After they were familiar with the Haran sword sect situation, they would tell them what to do. After they were done, they would arrange a suitable position for them. According to this plan, 7 days later, the 12 people who came out of the Haran secret realm used various medicinal pills provided by Yi Haoran and the others to finally recover their strength. Among the 12 people, there were 3 women and 9 men. None of them were in the early stage of the Marquis Wu realm. 2 of them were in the peak stage of the Marquis Wu realm. 5 were in the late stage of the Marquis Wu realm, and 5 were in the middle stage of the Marquis Wu realm. The 2 people in the peak stage of the Marquis Wu were Yi Yuanshan's grandfather and third grandfather. They were in the highest realm and were the last to recover their strength. After the 12 people had recovered their strength, Yi Yuanshan came to them alone. Yi Yuanshan's grandfather, Yi Qingxian, looked at Yi Yuanshan and asked, "Oh, it's you, Yuanshan. You've awakened so many of us at once this time. Is the battle between the righteous path and the demonic path coming again? Is the situation of our Haran sword clan very bad? Also, why don't I see your father and the others?" After Yi Qingxian finished speaking, the remaining 11 people of Yi Yuanshan all looked at Yi Yuanshan, waiting for an answer. The future of the Haran sword sect. Of the future of you, of the Haran sword sect. Because I have something to tell you about the future of the of Haran. Of half of the ha ha ha. Of the of ha ha ha. As for the war between the Haran sword sect and the Haran sword sect, it has been 5 years. The of Haran sword sect won and has been developing well. As for my father and the rest of his generation, they are all dead. My brothers and sisters are also dead. I am the only one left. I died in the war between the righteous and demonic paths, as well as the battle between the demon sword sect and the Azura sect. There was a lot of information in Yi Yuanshan's words. Yi Qingxian and the others could not digest it all at once. But when he heard that his son and daughter were all dead, Yi Qingxuan's eyes widened and he said in disbelief, "What did you say? Jinlin and the others are dead? The 5 of them, your uncle and the others, are all dead? Also, aren't there more than 10 people in your generation? You are the only one left? What is going on? Tell me clearly." Yi Qingxian was not the only one. The other 11 people were of the same generation as Yi Qingxian. They were all relatives. When they entered the secret realm to sleep, they also left behind descendants. Now that they heard Yi Yuanshan's words, they immediately became agitated and asked Yi Yuanshan what was going on. "Stop arguing. Shut up and listen quietly to what Yuanshan has to say." Yi Qingxian put on the dignity of a leader and stopped the others from asking questions. He had Yi Yuanshan explain the cause and effect in detail. Hence, Yi Yuanshan started from the last battle between the righteous and the devil more than 50 years ago, to the first rebellion of the deputy clan master, followed by the demon sword clan, Shura clan, and other first-class devil clans who took the opportunity to besiege the Haran sword clan. Then he talked about the suppression of the deputy clan master's rebellion 15 years ago, and the general development of the Haran sword clan later on. Then he talked about the battle between the righteous and the devil 5 years ago, where the Haran sword clan defeated the blockade and took revenge on the demon sword clan and Shura clan. After talking for more than 4 hours, Yi Yuanshan finally finished explaining the general situation. After he finished, he stood aside and waited for Yi Qingxian and the others to digest the information they had heard. After listening to Yi Yuanshan's narration, Yi Qingxian and the others were silent for almost an hour as they digested the information. Finally, Yi Qingxian said, "Yuanshan, you can go back first. If there's anything else, we can talk about it tomorrow. We need some peace and quiet." Yi Yuanshan had no objections, so he bowed and said, "Yes, grandfather. I'll take my leave first. There are arranged disciples standing guard outside the courtyard. If there's anything you want to know, just call them." With that, Yi Yuanshan left the room. After Yi Yuanshan left, Yi Qingxian and the others greeted each other and returned to their own rooms. They were all secretly upset. The next day, Yi Qingxian and the others sorted out their emotions and instructed the disciples to call Yi Yuanshan over. Yi Qingxian said, "Yuanshan, bring us around the current sect and tell us in detail about the sect's situation." "Okay, grandfather. Come with me. We'll talk as we walk." Yi Yuanshan led the way, and the 12 of them began to browse the Haran Sword sect's current situation. As they browsed, Yi Yuanshan also talked about the Haran Sword sect's history and the final results of its development. After spending 3 days in a row, Yi Yuanshan finally took Yi Qingxian and the others around Tiangang Peak. At the same time, he told Yi Qingxian and the others about the development process of the Haran Sword clan, the governance measures in the territory, the battles they had experienced, and the current strength of the clan. Yi Qingxian and the others were shocked, especially when they heard that the Xian New Temple had now merged with the Haran Sword sect. The 12 of them found it even harder to believe. "Yuanshan, is it really as you said? The Xian New Temple has already become a part of our Haran Sword sect?" Yi Yuanshan's third grandfather, Yi Qinglin, asked excitedly. "Third grandfather, there's no need to doubt this. 5 years ago, during the war between the right and the devil, we had already subdued the Xian New Temple. Now, the Xian New Temple has officially merged with our Haran Sword sect as early as 3 years ago. However, in order to ensure that our plan goes smoothly, we didn't publicize it. Everything is still confidential," Yi Yuanshan said with certainty. "What's the important thing you've been talking about? Why is it related to the future of the sect? Also, I didn't notice it at first, but after following you for the past few days, I realized that I couldn't see through your martial arts realm. Also, you said that during the war between the right and the devil, you took revenge on the Demon Sword sect and the Shura sect and completely crippled them. How did you deal with their marquee Wu realm masters? Also, as you said, your grandson has contributed greatly to the development of the sect to its current strength. Then why haven't I seen him these past few days?" Looking at Yi Yuanshan, Yi Qingxian couldn't help but ask the question in his heart. Yi Yuanshan believed that this was also the question in the hearts of the others, so he said, "As for the matter related to the fate of our sect, now is not the time to talk about it. Grandfather, I'll tell you after you've lived in the sect for a period of time and become completely familiar with it. As for my martial arts realm, it's still at the peak of Wuzong. The current world doesn't allow people to break through to the Marquis Wu realm, but my strength has already reached the Marquis Wu realm. When we attacked the Demon Sword sect and the Shura sect, it was my wife and I who attacked together and killed the Marquis Wu realm masters of the Demon Sword sect and the Shura sect. As for my grandson," Yi Yuanshan smiled bitterly and said under the puzzled gazes of Yi Qingxian and the others, "My grandson, Yi Tianzong, has a special origin. At the age of 12, he reached the peak of Wuzong realm. His strength is currently the #1 person in our Haran Sword sect, invincible in the world. The reason why I haven't seen him these past few days is mainly because of the conflict between our identities. I'm afraid that something bad will happen if we meet abruptly." Chapter 59. Yi Qingxian and the others were even more surprised by Yi Yuanshan's words, so they couldn't wait to ask, "What's going on?" What's so special about his origin? Is there any conflict between our identities? Yi Yuanshan did not speak. He first sent away all the disciples guarding outside the yard, then carefully observed the surrounding situation. After repeatedly confirming that no one would hear him, he turned to Yi Qingxian and the others and said very seriously, "Grandfather and elders, it's not that I don't want to tell you, but my grandson's origin is very important. You can know if you want to know, but you must swear on your own martial arts and life that you will never reveal it to anyone after hearing it. Otherwise, I won't tell you." After speaking, a vast and domineering aura erupted from Yi Yuanshan's body, making Yi Qingxian and the others feel the pressure and determination of Yi Yuanshan. At the same time, they were shocked to feel that Yi Yuanshan's aura was close to the peak of the Marquis Wu realm. Feeling Yi Yuanshan's unquestionable determination and attitude, Yi Qingxian and the others were a little angry. But because of the strength Yi Yuanshan had shown, they finally endured it. In the end, Yi Qingxian took the lead to swear on his own martial arts and life. If it was leaked, he would be rejected by heaven and earth, his martial arts career would be forbidden, and he would die a horrible death. After swearing, Yi Qingxian and the others looked at Yi Yuanshan with displeasure and said in a low voice, "Okay, we've made the oath. Now, you should tell us what's the special origin of your grandson. Is he the reincarnation of some mighty person from the ancient times?" Yi Yuanshan did not care about the unhappy faces of Yi Qingxian and the others and said seriously, "My grandson Yi Tianzong once told me that martial arts cultivation levels are divided into warrior of the initial realm, warrior of the ascension realm, martial master of the transformation realm, Wu Ling of the peerless realm, Wu Zong of the origin realm, Wu Ho of the Dan realm, Wu King of the defense realm, Wu Zun of the profound realm, and Wu Shang of the celestial realm. When you reach the celestial realm of Wu Shang, you can comprehend the mysteries of the laws of heaven and earth. When you cultivate to a certain extent, you can open up a secret space. And the founder of our Haran Sword sect is someone from the Wu Shang realm. Grandfather, am I right?" Yi Qingxian frowned and replied, "That's right. The Haran Sword sect has been established for more than 7,000 years. Our Grandmaster is indeed the supreme being of the Wu Shang realm. The Arcana realm of the sect was created by our Grandmaster." "Very well," Yi Yuanshan said. "We won't make wild guesses about the August Patriarch's cultivation base. What I want to say is that above Deva Wu Shang is the God Myth level. My grandson told me that there are 9 divisions of the God Myth level. I also went to check the records in the deepest part of the sect's secret vault. Our world started from the mythological era, then evolved to the ancient era, then evolved to the modern era, until the end of the modern era 5,000 years ago. Let's call it the modern era. From the mythological era to the current era, our world has been in a state of decline for unknown reasons. According to the few records, there were powerful beings of the God Myth level in the ancient era, so the mythological era should be the peak of the number of God Myth level powerhouses. All the worlds in the heavens are divided into the following levels: the lesser thousand world, the middle thousand world, the greater thousand world, and the chaotic heavenly domain. Each level of the world is divided into 4 levels: low, middle, high, and peak. Yi Yuanshan saw that Yi Qingxian and the others were shocked and puzzled, so he waved his hand to stop them from speaking. Yi Yuanshan understood the shock and puzzlement of Yi Qingxian and the others very well. Over the years, Yi Tianzong would tell Yi Yuanshan, Yi Haoran, and the others some superficial information about the heavens from time to time. This information was recorded in the Immortal Mansion. With Yi Tianzong's authority as a junior disciple, these superficial secrets of the heavens could be browsed at will. Yi Tianzong would pick some that he could talk about to Yi Haoran and the others, so that they could broaden their horizons. When Yi Tianzong told them this information, Yi Yuanshan and the others were also shocked and in disbelief. Yi Yuanshan continued, "Only medium-class worlds and above can give birth to existences of the God Myth level. The God Myth level has 9 levels, and the 7th level is the Divine King level. Only the most powerful medium-class worlds can accommodate the birth of the Divine King. My grandson, Tianzong, was a genius powerhouse of a powerful greater 1,000 world in his previous life. He cultivated for thousands of years and reached the 6th level of the god myth level below the Divine King level. Because he was framed and hunted down, he was accidentally reincarnated into our world and became my grandson. Looking at the shocked faces of Yi Qingxian and the others, Yi Yuanshan continued, "As for whether my grandson Tianzong is lying to me or not, after living with him for so many years, my grandson's arrogance of looking down on the world and being the best in the world cannot be concealed. Also, I can clearly feel the pressure brought about by the life level that is far beyond ours, and the Haran scripture that contains endless truth that he wrote can prove that my grandson is not lying to me. Later, you can find the Haran scripture and study it yourself to verify whether I am lying to you. Since my grandson is not lying to me, here comes the question. According to my grandson, he comes from the greater 1,000 world and is of noble birth. He has cultivated for many years and was once a super powerhouse of the god myth level. He has the dignity and pride of a powerhouse. When he was about to die, he reincarnated into our world. Regardless of whether it was due to karma or the reproduction of his bloodline, he was able to live a new life as my grandson. Furthermore, we never owed him anything, so he could accept our identity and call me grandfather. But it is limited to our family. But he is not related to you. He has never seen you or had any interactions with you. If you want to get along with him as equals, it is possible. But if you want him to accept you and treat you as his great-great-grandson, that is impossible. His own pride does not allow him to accept you. Previously, you did not know the origin of my grandson, Tianzong. If you rashly meet him and cause unnecessary conflict, my grandson will not be merciful. Don't doubt my words. 5 years ago, when we attacked the Shura sect, the Shura sect's marquis, Wu Realm Powerhouse, was killed by my grandson with a single punch. Grandfather, although you have the strength of a large number of people, all of you together are no match for my grandson. In the past, because of the way our Haran Sword sect acted, we were disliked by all the super sections. In addition, we were blocked by the forces supported by Jinbu Gate, the Demon Sword sect, the Shura sect, and other super sections. Our only ally, the Xiannu Temple, was not able to share much of the pressure for us in the past. Our situation was very difficult. Ever since my grandson began to take part in the management of the sect 15 years ago, the strength of the sect has undergone earth-shaking changes. He even compiled the Haran Sutra, which defined the philosophy and goals of our sect. During the war between the righteous and the devil, we resisted the siege of one. 2 million people in 4 directions with only 400,000 disciples. Later, we annexed the Xiannu Temple and took revenge on the Demon Sword sect and the Shura sect. Now, the sect has more than 570 powerhouses in Wuzong and more than 5 million disciples. My grandson, Tianzong, has supreme strength and prestige in the sect. He is the spiritual leader of the disciples and elders. Once there is a conflict between you and my grandson, no one will support you. Grandfather, before you figure out how to get along with my grandson, do you still want to see him? After Yi Yuanshan finished speaking, Yi Qingxian and the others fell into silence, thinking about how to get along with Yi Tianzong. These days, Yi Yuanshan had already told them that the important matter concerning the fate of the sect was about to begin. He had also sent out invitations to all the sects and the Zhou dynasty, asking them to escort the smooth implementation of the plan. At the same time, they could also benefit from it, making up for their lost vitality and foundation. For the time being, they could not return to the secret realm to continue sleeping. After they were familiar with the current situation of the Haran Sword sect, he would tell them the details of the plan. In order for them to be able to participate smoothly, it was inevitable that they would come into contact with Yi Tianzong. Therefore, they had to determine how to get along with Yi Tianzong as soon as possible. They had to admit that Yi Yuanshan's words were very reasonable. It seemed that it was absolutely impossible for them to be an elder. As martial artists, the belief that the strong were respected was engraved in their bones. Putting aside the relationship between family members, they, the Marquis Wu realm, looked down on Wu Zongjing. Moreover, according to Yi Yuanshan, Yi Tianzong was once a super powerhouse of the myth realm in the vast thousand world. Although he did not have invincible power after reincarnation, the pride in his heart would not disappear. Chapter 60. After the arrival of all the forces, the Haran Sword sect recalled all the elders and disciples who were in charge of the other cities. The previously prosperous and peaceful Haran city became very lively and noisy because of the arrival of these forces. Every sect had their own enemies. The various sects that arrived were able to find their own enemies. If anything went wrong, a conflict would break out and a fight would break out. What was interesting was that when faced with the great Zhou dynasty's troops, all the sects would faintly unite. In order to ensure the order of Haran City, the Haran Sword sect not only built 20 battle arenas in the city, but also 3 life and death arenas. At the same time, they also sent over 100,000 disciples of Haran who were martial masters and above, as well as over 300 elders to cooperate with Yi Yuanshan, Li Qingya, and Yi Haoyun to manage the city. Since the Haran Sword clan had sent out such a powerful force, the various clans and sects restrained some of their arrogance out of fear and rarely fought on the streets. Instead, they fought in the arena and the arena of life and death. Of course, as the host this time, the Haran Sword sect was targeted by the various sects just like the Zhou dynasty. Other than the neighboring sects of the Haran Sword sect, the Demon Sword sect, the Shura sect, and the Jinbu Gate, who were very well behaved, the other sects basically sent out their elite disciples to challenge the Haran Sword sect. Especially the super sects like the Lingyun Hall, the Sky Demon Temple, and the Medicine King Valley, who had suffered losses at the hands of the Haran Sword sect, were even more arrogant. They even arrogantly declared that they would trample Yi Tianzong under their feet and snatch away the young mistress of the sect, Ling Xingyue. These words were like poking a hornet's nest, completely angering the disciples of the Haran Sword sect. The disciples of Haran were in an uproar. They hated the people of Lingyun Hall, Sky Demon Temple, and Medicine King Valley to the core. They didn't say anything and directly entered the life and death arena. In order to kill off the disciples of these sects, the Haran Sword sect had sent out all the disciples who had been on the Dragon Phoenix list in the past. The Haran Sword sect's Dragon Phoenix ranking tournament was held once every 2 years. There were only 36 people in each rank. This was especially true for the core disciple ranking. Every year, the most amazing and powerful geniuses among the Wu Ling realm core disciples would be chosen. In the current world, these disciples had cultivated every realm to the extreme. It could be said that without Yi Tianzong and Ling Xingyue, the Dragon Phoenix ranking was no less valuable than the Prodigy ranking. In order to nurture these people, Yi Tianzong had given them preferential treatment in all aspects. Now, among the first batch of disciples on the Dragon Phoenix ranking, more than 10 of them had cultivated to the late stage of Wu Zongjing. In the hearts of the Haran disciples, Yi Tianzong had a supreme status and prestige. He was their spiritual leader. Now, Yi Tianzong was being humiliated by outsiders and even dared to threaten to steal the young sect master's wife. What was this? This was a naked provocation to them. All of Haran's disciples were enraged, their killing intent soaring to the sky. And the disciples on the Dragon Phoenix ranking didn't disappoint the disciples and higher-ups of the Haran Sword sect. In the life and death arena, the disciples on the Dragon Phoenix ranking caught the disciples of Lingyun Hall, Sky Demon Temple, and Medicine King Valley. They fought head-on and ruthlessly killed their opponents without any mercy. Even if their opponents chose to admit defeat, they didn't care. They were determined to kill their opponents, even if it meant dying together with them. Under the ruthless and decisive methods of the Haran Sword sect, the disciples of Lingyun Hall, Sky Demon Temple and Medicine King Valley suffered heavy casualties. In just 2 days, more than 100 of the elite disciples they had brought with them had died. Even if the disciples of the three sects avoided the challenges of the Haran Sword sect, they would still be forcefully challenged by the Haran Sword sect. The people of Lingyun Hall, Sky Demon Temple, and Medicine King Valley were used to being tyrannical even among the super sections. Other than the Zhou dynasty, they had never been afraid of anyone. When had they ever suffered such humiliation? Therefore, the experts of the three sects who didn't want to continue losing their disciples erupted into conflict with the Haran Sword sect. They even broke the rules of the life and death arena and attacked the disciples of the Haran Sword sect. The big shots of the three super sects, Lingyun Hall, Sky Demon Temple, and Medicine King Valley, took the lead to attack. The other sects who didn't get along with the Haran Sword sect also took the opportunity to join in. A total of more than 20 sects and more than 400 Wuzong experts threatened the Haran Sword sect. The other 30 or so first-rate sects and above watched with folded arms and didn't participate. Of course, the Haran Sword sect wouldn't compromise. Yi Yuanshan Li Qingya and Yi Haoyun made a prompt decision and led more than 300 elders to violently suppress the enemies. The disciples of the Haran Sword sect formed a sword formation around the periphery of the battlefield to prevent the enemies from escaping. At the same time, they dispersed the ordinary people around them. Under the leadership of the three super experts, Yi Yuanshan, Li Qingya, and Yi Haoyun, the Wuzong alliance of more than 20 sects led by Lingyun Hall, Sky Demon Temple, and Medicine King Valley. Although they had the advantage in numbers, when faced with the violent suppression of the Haran Sword sect, they were quickly defeated. The elders of the Haran Sword sect didn't hesitate to deal with the experts of the various sects who were looking for trouble. Although they didn't directly kill them, they didn't hesitate to cripple or seriously injure them. Just like that, in less than half an hour, the Lingyun Hall, Sky Demon Temple, Medicine King Valley, and more than 20 other sects and more than 400 Wuzong experts were directly suppressed by the Haran Sword sect. Everyone was either seriously injured or missing an arm or a leg. All of them fell to the ground and couldn't get up. It was a complete mess. In particular, the people of Lingyun Hall, Sky Demon Temple, and Medicine King Valley were targeted. Not only were they seriously injured, but their martial arts cultivation was also crippled. Yi Haoyun looked at the people who had fallen to the ground and glanced at the other clans who were watching from the side. He said coldly, "Since you're in the territory of the Haran Sword clan, you have to follow our rules obediently. If you want to cause trouble, we'll accompany you to the end, but you have to bear the consequences yourself. This is the only time, and there won't be a next time. If you do it again, you will be killed without mercy." After Yi Haoyun finished speaking, Yi Yuanshan, and Li Qingya led most of the elders and left. The remaining 10 or so elders led hundreds of Haran disciples to clean up the battlefield, compensate for the damaged houses, and deal with the aftermath. It had to be said that the Haran Sword sect's tyrannical strength and ruthless style had intimidated the various sects that came. Lingyun Hall, Sky Demon Temple, and Medicine King Valley were at the level of overlords among the super sections. Other than facing the Zhou dynasty, they were definitely in existence that could do whatever they wanted in the Central Plains. Now, even the leaders of the respective teams of these three sects were seriously injured. They didn't even care about these three sects and mercilessly crippled their martial arts cultivation. The martial arts of these three sects were absolutely irreconcilable. In the future, Lingyun Hall, Sky Demon Temple, and Medicine King Valley would definitely ruthlessly retaliate. Even Lingyun Hall, Sky Demon Temple, and Medicine King Valley's people ended up like this, let alone the other sections. If they caused trouble again, these sects believed that the Haran Sword sect would definitely do as they said. Previously, they thought that no matter how much trouble they cause, the Haran Sword sect didn't have the strength and wouldn't do anything to them. Now, it seemed that they were a little too naive. Under normal circumstances, the Haran Sword sect wouldn't do anything to them. At most, they would send their disciples to injure their disciples in the arena and teach them a lesson. However, If they violated the Haran Sword sect's bottom line, no matter who they were, they would definitely kill them. These forces that didn't participate in the matter were very clear about the cause and effect. Ever since Lingyun Hall, Sky Demon Temple and Medicine King Valley began to humiliate the Haran Sword sect's young sect master and even threatened to steal his wife, the Haran Sword sect's attitude changed. The Haran Sword sect's attitude immediately changed. The disciples of the Haran Sword sect were filled with killing intent, as if they had an irreconcilable hatred with Lingyun Hall, Sky Demon Temple, and Medicine King Valley. They directly fought to the death in the arena. Even during the Great Battle of Wuzong, the Haran Sword sect didn't compromise. They were merciless and didn't hesitate at all. As a result, the current situation was created. Although the defeated and suppressed sects hated the Haran Sword sect to death, they didn't dare to cause trouble and obediently stayed in Haran City. Even if they hated the Haran Sword sect, they didn't have any intention of leaving. However, they couldn't avoid sending messages to their respective sections. As for the sects that weren't targeted and didn't participate in the matter, they rejoiced in their hearts. At the same time, they were very curious and fearful of the Haran Sword sect's strength. In a huge and luxurious courtyard, the Zhou dynasty's team was staying. At this moment, the great Zhou imperial commander, the great Zhou crown prince, the third prince, and Princess Linyue all appeared in a room. These people had all returned after witnessing the Haran Sword sect violently suppress Wuzong. At this moment, the atmosphere in the room was somewhat silent. Princess Linyue, who was wearing a snow-white brocade robe and had a peerless appearance and a gentle and holy temperament, spoke first. It seems that we seriously underestimated the strength of the Haran Sword sect. Not to mention others, just those Haran disciples who fought against Lingyun Hall. Sky Demon Temple and Medicine King Valley were no weaker than those on the prodigy ranking. And the three people leading today, their strength is beyond the limits of Wu Zongjing. Those Wuzong disciples who provoked the sect weren't a match for them at all. They are already comparable to Marquis Wu experts. However, according to the titles of the Haran disciples, they are the Grand Elders and the Disciplinary Hall Master. This means that they have the strength of a Marquis Wu in the Wu Zongjing realm and aren't bound by the true Marquis Wu experts. The golden-robed great Zhou Crown Prince said in a deep voice, "Imperial Sister is right. I think it's not just us, but everyone has underestimated the strength of the Haran Sword sect. It seems that many unknown changes have occurred in the Haran Sword sect over the years. Ever since the Demon Sword sect joined forces with the Shura sect to launch a sneak attack, it has only been a few decades since the Haran Sword sect was attacked by the Demon Sword sect and the Shura sect. I just don't know what the Haran Sword sect's so-called breakthrough to Marquis Wu is." Chapter 61. The third prince said absent-mindedly, "I'm not interested in whether they can break through to the Marquis Wu realm. What I'm interested in is the so-called Haran Sword sect's young sect leader. I've heard that the mysterious young sect leader is the strongest prodigy of the Haran Sword sect. Since the three people who attacked are so strong, then how strong is the so-called young sect leader? In any case, he's already surpassed us." When the third prince said this, the room fell into a state of silence again. That's right. Seeing how the Haran disciples were enraged when they heard that the young sect leader was insulted, the strength and prestige of the mysterious young sect leader couldn't be underestimated. Even those Haran experts from Wu Zongjing looked like they were going to fight to the death. They wouldn't arbitrarily think that the rumors were untrustworthy. In the end, the great Zhou imperial commander, who had been silent all this while, said, "No matter what, the Haran Sword sect's decisive suppression has solved a lot of problems for us. These sects have always been hostile to our Zhou dynasty. Originally, you would have been challenged, but the people from Lingyun Hall, Sky Demon Temple, and Medicine King Valley were all suppressed by the Haran Sword sect. The rest is much simpler. At least, other than these sects, no one will dare to challenge you." The great Zhou Crown Prince said, "Commander Wang is right. The people from Lingyun Hall, Sky Demon Temple, and Medicine King Valley have always been arrogant and domineering because of their long history and powerful strength. If it wasn't for the fact that we have many internal factions and most of our strength is in confrontation with the other three kingdoms, how could we tolerate them being so presumptuous? Now that the Haran Sword sect has taught them a lesson, it can be considered as venting our anger. Just let these sects fight with each other. In any case, the one who benefits in the end is our Zhou dynasty. With the great Zhou crown prince's words, the third prince and the great Zhou imperial commander both nodded in agreement. At the same time, Princess Lianyuan nodded. Her gentle and clear eyes blinked slightly as if she was thinking of something. Time passed day by day like this. The sun was getting closer and closer. The Haran Sword sect was also preparing in an orderly manner. After the Haran Sword sect's decisive suppression last time, all the sects that came had indeed become well-behaved. No matter what thoughts they had in their hearts, they didn't dare to use their status to cause trouble in the city of Haran. They were all waiting for the sun to come and see what the Haran Sword sect's so-called breakthrough to the Marquis Wu would be like. Once the people of the Haran Sword sect really had a way to successfully avoid the confinement of heaven and earth and break through to the Marquis Wu, then they would join forces to force the Haran Sword sect to disclose the method they found. And once they failed, it was foreseeable that the Haran Sword sect would basically become the public enemy of all the sections. They would be targeted by all the sects, especially the Lingyun Hall, Sky Demon Temple, and Medicine King Valley. They would definitely crazily retaliate against the Haran Sword sect. When that time came, even the Zhou dynasty wouldn't be able to protect the Haran Sword sect. Of course, the higher-ups of the Haran Sword sect were very clear about this, but there was no turning back. Since they had decided to invite all the sects and the people of the Zhou dynasty to come, they had already thought of all the consequences. The plan had already reached the final stage, and the Haran Sword sect could no longer give up. They could only follow this path to the end and pave for a bright future. Just as the Haran Sword sect was making its final preparations, the Lingyun Hall, Sky Demon Temple, Medicine King Valley, and more than 20 other sects that had received the news one after another were boiling with anger. Especially the heads of the three sects, Lingyun Hall, Sky Demon Temple, and Medicine King Valley, were furious. Without any discussion or hesitation, they immediately began to mobilize the forces of their sects to punish and retaliate against the Haran Sword sect. Although they were a little far away from the Haran Sword sect, the three sects had a lot of secret support. Even if they had to expose a little, they wouldn't hesitate. This wasn't a matter of whether or not it was worth it, or whether or not it took effort. Not only was their dignity as the overlords of the super sects not to be challenged, but they also had to seek justice for their disciples. They had to let everyone know that their sects were determined to protect their disciples. If it was just a few disciples who were defeated or injured in a fight, then they could only hold their noses and accept the fact that they were inferior to others in the same realm. However, the teams sent out by the sects were basically led by important figures like the vice sect leaders or grand elders. The Haran Sword sect had injured or even crippled more than 20 sects Wuzong in one go. No matter what, they definitely wouldn't let this matter rest. The more than 20 sects that had made up their minds to retaliate all began to mobilize the forces of their respective sections. This time, the revenge against the Haran Sword sect wasn't a small matter. They had to travel thousands of miles and had to be well prepared before they could do it. Not to mention other things, the super sects themselves were strong enough to send out a powerful force to retaliate. However, the first-rate sects needed to discuss and communicate with each other before forming an alliance. The alliance had a lot of people, so they had a lot of confidence in their hearts. It would be easier to solve some problems if they encountered them. Otherwise, if they acted alone and passed by the super sects' territory, they could only stare at them helplessly even if they were not allowed to pass. They might even be attacked by other sects halfway and suffer heavy casualties. It was much better to form an alliance. At the very least, they had the confidence to bargain, and their ability to resist risks was strong. Although the Haran Sword sect didn't pay attention to the sects that were suppressed and retaliated, they could guess that if they were in the same position, they would definitely retaliate. However, the people of the Haran Sword sect weren't worried. These sects were quite far away from the Haran Sword sect. It would take them at least 3 months to prepare a force of more than 100,000 people and cross the great distance to reach the Haran Sword sect. With this buffer time, the Haran Sword sect would be able to make sufficient preparations no matter what. The sun was getting closer and closer to the end of the year. However, there was no New Year's atmosphere in the Haran Sword sect. This included the areas under the rule of the Xian New Temple. Under the guidance of the disciples of the Haran Sword sect, over 50 million people who could recite the Haran Song of Righteousness were arranged in a specific formation and formed a vast 9 palaces, 8 trigrams formation. At the same time, all the disciples of the Haran Sword sect were also practicing outside the city of Haran. The disciples of the Haran Sword sect stretched as far as the eye could see. Although they already knew that the Haran Sword sect had over 1 million disciples, seeing it with their own eyes still gave them a direct understanding of the strength of the Haran Sword sect. It turned out that the Haran Sword sect's strength had already reached such a stage. Based on the current situation, which sect would be a match for the Haran Sword sect in a one-on-one battle? While the entire Haran Sword sect was busy, the long-awaited day finally arrived. It was a sunny day. There were no clouds in the sky, and the sun was high up in the sky. Everyone involved in the Haran Sword sect went to their respective positions. The various sects and the people of the Zhou dynasty were also invited to a pre-built, high platform to watch. The various sects and the people of the Zhou dynasty stood on the high platform in the distance and watched from afar. They saw that all the people of the Haran Sword sect were arranged in a concentric circle from the inside to the outside. In the center was a pre-built high platform. The higher-ups of the Haran Sword sect were also arranged according to their strength. Yi Haoran, Ling Xinyue, and the others were on the first level. Yi Tianzong and the others who came out of the arcane realm were also on the first level. The most central position was undoubtedly reserved for Yi Tianzong. Chapter 62. At this moment, Yi Tianzong had already appeared at the highest point of the high platform. He was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, quietly waiting for the arrival of noon. The others, including Haran's disciples, were also sitting where they were, silently chanting the song of Haran's righteousness. At this moment, in other places of the Haran Sword sect, everyone who was sitting according to the formation was also silently chanting the song of Haran's righteousness. In the unseen sky, thousands of miles above the Haran Sword sect, a vast and majestic golden Haran's righteousness was rolling and surging. Ever since the forces of various sects and clans arrived, Yi Tianzong had not appeared in front of these people. Even Yi Haoran and Yi Qingxian had shown their faces, but Yi Tianzong had never appeared. Everyone was very curious about the mysterious young master of the Haran Sword sect. Now, this was the first time that people from various sects and clans had seen Yi Tianzong's figure, and when they saw Yi Tianzong's position, they could not help but have a thought in their minds. Could it be that the young master of the Haran Sword sect would break through to the Marquis Wu state today? With the martial cultivation of these people, it was enough for them to see Yi Tianzong on the high platform in the distance. Although they could not see Yi Tianzong's appearance clearly, they could still roughly see his every move. How to put it? When these people saw Yi Tianzong, they felt strange. It was as if he did not fit in with the world, but he was also like a luminous pearl in the dark night, attracting everyone's gaze and attention. When their attention was focused on Yi Tianzong, they actually felt a faint sense of oppression. This kind of oppression reminded them of the feeling when facing a powerhouse who was stronger than them. This made them feel very inconceivable and shocked. Was Yi Tianzong very strong? That was for sure. Otherwise, they would not have heard the rumor that Yi Tianzong was the strongest person in the Haran Sword sect. But there was a limit to how strong he was. Yi Tianzong was 10 miles away from them. For the sake of the plot of the novel, there was no need to be so serious about whether they could see that far. At such a distance, they could still feel the oppression from Yi Tianzong. How strong was Yi Tianzong? How could such a powerful inhuman existence exist in today's world? This was beyond their understanding, knowledge. In fact, what they did not know was that the oppression they felt was not from Yi Tianzong's own strength, but from Yi Tianzong's majestic spirit power, which spread over a radius of more than 10 miles. And Yi Tianzong did not deliberately restrain the fluctuation of his spirit power. Such a vast spirit power naturally oppressed the spirit of an ordinary warrior, causing these people to misunderstand. Otherwise, with his own martial strength, even if he had reached the Wu King realm, it was impossible to make people feel oppressed just by looking at him from 10 miles away. And it was this kind of misconception that made them very afraid of Yi Tianzong's strength. They even suppressed some of their original thoughts and waited on the high platform obediently, not daring to act rashly. Time passed bit by bit, and the great sun hanging high in the sky also gradually moved to the south. The hour of noon came. Yi Tianzong, who was sitting cross-legged on the high platform with his eyes closed, opened his eyes. 2 beams of light shot out from his eyes, which were so conspicuous even at noon when the sun was high in the sky. Yi Tianzong, who opened his eyes, immediately stood up and then looked up at the sky with a dignified expression. Following Yi Tianzong's action, all the people of the Haran sword sect present also stood up and pulled out their sharp swords, looking very alert. The tense and dignified atmosphere made the people of various sects and schools more than 10 miles away nervous. They subconsciously adjusted the rhythm of their breathing. The Marquis Wu realm, whose full name was Marquis Wu of the Dan realm, was to gather all the genuine essence and martial comprehension in one's body to condense a martial arts core that belonged to oneself. In this way, one could gain 300 years of life and the ability to fly for a short time. Then, as the martial artist continued to cultivate and comprehend the mysteries of martial arts, the martial arts core would continue to grow and the genuine essence of the martial artist would become purer and purer. When one reached the peak of the Marquis Wu realm, one would use the power of the martial arts core to open the acupoints of the martial artist's body. From there, one could communicate with the outside world and gain the ability to fly. Breaking through to the Marquis Wu realm would be suppressed by the heavens and earth. Forcefully breaking through would result in a backlash from the heavens and earth. Breaking through to the Marquis Wu realm was the first step to reversing the decline of the heavens and earth. Therefore, even if Yi Tianzong was very confident, he still had to go all out and did not dare to be careless. For this day, Yi Tianzong had made too many preparations. From the moment he could walk, he had never stopped exploring and analyzing the profound spirit world. He had spent too much energy and time researching the seals and restrictions. If he failed, he felt that he could not afford to lose face. Yi Tianzong's gaze became firm and unshakable as he looked at the sky. Then he erupted with his full strength and qi and began to attack the barrier of the Marquis Wu realm. Yi Tianzong's accumulation was unfathomable. He was sitting on the immortal mansion, the supreme treasure of the myriad heavens. Although he was only a junior disciple and could not use most of the functions of the immortal mansion, but just 4 times the time and 4 times the concentration of Yuan Qi in the outside world was enough to defy the heavens. Not to mention that Yi Tianzong's current aptitude and foundation were at the level of the heavens chosen. The heavens chosen had potential to surpass the myth realm. Their foundation were so strong that it was hard for ordinary people to imagine. The breakthrough of the Marquis Wu realm was very smooth. It did not take much effort because of Yi Tianzong's heaven-defying aptitude and foundation. Yi Tianzong had broken through the Marquis Wu realm more than once, so he was very familiar with it. In this life, there was no problem for him to break through. He skillfully mobilized the pure and majestic Jinqi in his body and condensed it into a chaotic egg-sized Qian core in his dantian. Just as Yi Tianzong broke through the barrier of the Marquis Wu realm and condensed the Qian core, the sky above Yi Tianzong, which was originally cloudless for thousands of miles, suddenly became densely covered with dark clouds, which filled the sky within a radius of 10 miles. Then, the dense dark clouds became thicker and thicker. Lightning and thunder even appeared in the rolling dark clouds. Yi Tianzong, who had divided part of his mind to pay attention to the outside world, also noticed the phenomenon above his head. It seemed that the thunder tribulation should have come at the beginning. It was similar to what was recorded in the secret library of the sect, but he did not know what would happen next. According to the records, all the people who tried to break through the Marquis Wu realm were turned into ashes by the thunder tribulation. No one knew what would happen next. Anyway, it can't be just the thunder tribulation. According to my calculation, there should be 3 tests. But since my previous life, I haven't been struck by lightning for a long time. It's just an ordinary thunder tribulation. I'll just take it as a warm-up, Yi Tianzong thought. Not to mention Yi Tianzong's confidence. Everyone who saw this scene had a grave expression on their faces. The people of the Haran Sword sect had grave expressions and were worried about Yi Tianzong, while the people of various sects and schools in the distance had some bad memories on their faces. For warriors, the improvement of strength was more important than anything else. Because of the current environment, they could only stop at the peak of Wuzong. Of course, no warrior would be willing to accept this. There was no Wuzong who did not want to break through the Marquis Wu realm. However, the predecessors of various sects and schools who had tried in the past had left behind bloody facts and lessons. Breaking through the Marquis Wu realm was a dead end. Under the thunder tribulation of heaven and earth, everything would be annihilated. The situation facing Yi Tianzong in front of them cast an indelible shadow on the road of martial arts in their hearts. Chapter 63. Yi Tianzong looked at the figure that was condensed from black clouds descending from the sky. He could feel the powerful energy coming from the figure, which was no different from his own. The only difference was that the figure was a little sluggish. This should be the second test. One had to fight against a figure that was as strong as oneself. One had to either win or destroy the figure. Next, even without Yi Tianzong's reminder, everyone from the Haran Sword sect knew what to do. Wielding their swords, they began to fight with the person in front of them. In the blink of an eye, the area within a radius of 10 miles had turned into a vast battlefield. Both sides were at the same level, and even their cultivation techniques and martial skills were the same. They were evenly matched in the battle. Although the black cloud figure was sluggish, it was not afraid of being injured. It did not care about anything when it fought. Every time it was attacked by the Haran Sword sect, it only lost a small amount of energy. In comparison, the people from the Haran Sword sect were suffering. The black cloud figure was not afraid of being injured. It only lost a small amount of energy. However, they were afraid. They were living people, not things that were condensed from black clouds and energy. Although they were not as agile as themselves, if they were not careful and were stabbed by the sword, they would definitely die. Furthermore, fighting against someone who was as strong as oneself required a lot of energy and concentration. However, when the black cloud figure was attacked, it only lost a small amount of energy. It would immediately return to its human form and attack again. This situation made the people from the Haran Sword sect so angry that they wanted to vomit blood. The people from the Haran Sword sect had never hated the strength that they were so proud of. It turned out to be so difficult to deal with, and it had tricked them. Everyone from the Haran Sword sect was fighting, and Yi Tianzong was no exception. However, compared to other people's battles, the battle between Yi Tianzong and the black cloud figure was extremely intense and exciting. Yi Tianzong and the black cloud figure leaped into the air and began to fight in the air. Ever since he was in the profound spirit world, Yi Tianzong, who had not met any opponents, finally met an opponent who could fight with him. Immediately, He could not hold back the desire to fight in his heart. He abandoned his flexible method and fought with the black cloud figure head-on. As soon as they started fighting, the storm of their battle overshadowed everyone else. The martial artists that were born in the profound spirit world, regardless of whether they learned a cultivation method or created a martial technique, as long as it had appeared before, nothing could be hidden from them. Therefore, Yi Tianzong had once revealed a portion of the contents of the divine martial heavenly art, and the figure in the black cloud knew all of it. Heaven and earth could not create things that had not been revealed. Therefore, Yi Tianzong did not reveal too much of his background. Instead, he used part of the divine martial heavenly skill that he had revealed before to fight against the black cloud figure. Although the black cloud figure opposite him was strong and had the characteristic of being unkillable before its energy was exhausted, Yi Tianzong had never fully revealed his strength. Once he was serious, the black cloud figure was not enough to fight against Yi Tianzong. World-suppressing fist, heaven-covering palm, God-shattering finger, and aurora flash shadow were all used. In order to experience the feeling of fighting more, Yi Tianzong used 50% of his strength to fight against the black cloud figure. They moved around in the air above the battlefield in a radius of 10 miles. At one point, they even fought into the black cloud layer, and the black cloud retreated wherever they went. The violent and overbearing world-suppressing fist, the heaven-covering palm that sealed the sky and locked the earth, the God-shattering finger that could penetrate everything, the figure that was as fast as light, and the collision of the vast and fierce power made everyone's heart tremble. The people of various sects and forces on the high platform in the distance focused on the vast battlefield and the fierce battle in midair that they had never seen before in their lives. They were afraid of missing any details. At this time, any thoughts of causing trouble had long been thrown to Java. The third prince of Great Zhou looked at the battle between Yi Tianzong and the black cloud figure with a shocked expression and muttered, "Is this the strength of the Haran Sword Sect's young sect master? Even if he broke through to the Marquis Wu realm, he shouldn't be so powerful. He has such strength, but he is ranked behind me on the Tianjiao list. Then what kind of Tianjiao are we?" Although his voice was soft, the crown prince of Great Zhou, Princess Linue, and the imperial commander around him all heard it. Looking at the fierce battle in the air, although Yi Tianzong had broken through to the Marquis Wu realm, the strength that he displayed was definitely beyond what they had seen. The records of the Marquis Wu realm martial artist's strength in the books they had read about. At this time, Yi Tianzong was like a towering mountain pressing down on the heads of all the Tianjiao. All the young disciples and Tianjiao of various forces who came to watch were silent. The strength that Yi Tianzong displayed was beyond their reach. They had all read the records of their own sects and knew very well that even if they broke through to the Marquis Wu realm, they would never have such strength. And some female disciples looked at Yi Tianzong with blurred eyes and a little bit of worship. The world of martial artists was very realistic and direct. As long as one was strong enough, they would be sought after and even worshipped by others. Yi Tianzong was having a good time fighting, but the people of the Haran Sword sect below him were fighting very hard. All the disciples and elders of the Haran Sword sect, as well as Yi Haoran, Ling Xinue, Yi Qingxian, and the others who had been fighting for a period of time, had consumed at least half of their strength. However, the energy of the black cloud figure opposite them was less than half depleted, and the situation became very unfavorable. No one dared to be careless. They all continued to fight with their minds tense, for fear that a moment of carelessness would consign them to eternal damnation. Yi Tianzong, who had been paying attention to the situation, was also very clear about the current situation. However, he had no intention of making a move. The solution to the unfavorable situation was actually very simple, but no one had noticed it. Yi Tianzong had long noticed that the black cloud in the sky only covered a radius of 10 miles. As long as they left the area covered by the black cloud layer, the black cloud figures would no longer chase after them. In other words, the black cloud figures could not step out of the black cloud layer. Within the area covered by the black cloud layer, there would be as many black cloud figures as there were people. Yi Tianzong would not make a move to help the people of the Haran Sword sect. After all, it would be very beneficial for everyone to defeat an opponent who was as strong as himself and had learned the same things. However, he also would not watch as the people of the Haran Sword sect suffered any casualties because of this. Therefore, when Yi Tianzong was fighting with the black cloud figures in the sky, Yi Tianzong would transmit his voice to the people of the Haran Sword sect below him, telling them that they could leave the area covered by the black cloud layer and get a chance to catch their breath. Then, before the black cloud figures dissipated, they could come back in and continue fighting. After receiving Yi Tianzong's instructions, the people of the Haran Sword sect let out a long sigh of relief. Then they began to follow Yi Tianzong's instructions and withdrew from the area covered by the black cloud layer in batches. Then they hurriedly swallowed the elixirs that they had prepared beforehand and quickly recovered their strength. When they realized that the black cloud figures were about to dissipate, they would enter the area covered by the black cloud layer again and continue fighting. This method was actually a stalling tactic. There was a limit to the amount of energy gathered by the heavens and earth. It was impossible to continuously replenish the energy. Faced with this rare opportunity that was equivalent to a life and death battle, the people of the Haran Sword sect used this loophole to exhaust the energy of the black cloud figures in front of them. Then they would be able to persevere until they won the battle. In the end, they would gain a lot of experience points, which would be very beneficial to their future path of martial arts. The changes on the battlefield were quickly noticed by the people from the various sects and forces on the high platform outside the perimeter. Then they gradually realized that there was an opportunity in this. With less risk, they could fight to the death with an opponent who was equivalent to them. As long as they were not idiots, they would understand the benefits. And now, the people of the Haran Sword sect were actually going through this process, which made the people from the various sects and forces envious. If not for the fact that they were worried that they would be treated as enemies by the Haran Sword sect if they rashly participated in this battle, they would have already joined the battle themselves.